Okay, great. Okay, it's 6:30 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting of the Village Board to order. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Eater.
Here.
Trustee Enyia. Trustee Leving Jacobson. Trustee Straw.
Here.
Trustee Taglia.
Here.
Trustee Wesley. President Skaman.
Here. Okay, so we do have a quorum. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session. Greg, to do what?
To discuss pending, probable, and imminent litigation involving or affecting the village pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C11, and to discuss the purchase or sale of real property for use of the village, including whether particular parcels should be acquired pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C5.
Thank you. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Straw, seconded by Trustee Eater. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Straw.
Yes.
Trustee Eater.
Yes.
Trustee Taglia.
Yes.
Trustee President Skaman.
Yes. Okay, see you shortly. Thank you very much. Meeting of the Village Board.
Just use your lens.
I'd like to call us back to order, please. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll? Christina, you can take the roll. Unmute. Christina, we can't hear you.
There she is.
Oh, very good. Okay, Christina, you can take the roll when you're ready.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Trustee Eater,
Here.
Trustee Enyia,
Here.
Trustee Levin Jacobson,
Here.
Trustee Straw,
Here.
Trustee Taglia,
Here.
Trustee Wesley,
Here.
President Skaman.
Here. And I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as it's been presented.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Trustee Wesley, seconded by Trustee Taglia. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
And so moving forward to non-agenda public comment. Nolan Kruger, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, my name is Nolan. I'm a junior at OPRF. And yesterday I walked out of the main entrance to learn ICE had been in Oak Park. There was a whole lot of fear from everyone around me as everybody was kind of just spreading the word. I actually thought they were at the high school. Later I learned that they'd never actually come past Madison Street, but I am reminded of the fear that I felt. I don't think it's right for kids to feel that way, especially around public schools such as OPRF. My intention today is to read a simple letter I wrote to the judge of Paul Ivory's case. I don't know if, I'm sure most of you are familiar. I didn't intend for the letter to have a whole lot of impact. I just wanted the judge to understand Paul on more of a human level, because he's a hall monitor and lunch helper at the high school, and you know, I've had interactions with him before. He's not a criminal, and that's what my letter was about. I just would like to read it for you all as it is. I learned recently about Paul Ivory's arrest, and it made me feel really scared for our Oak Park community. I am a junior at OPRF, and I see Paul every day during lunch, and I often interact with him when I come in to order my food. He's a kind person and not a criminal. especially since he works for the high school and has certainly passed many background checks to even be considered by the school. I see him at the end of the day when he works as a hall monitor for the main school entrance. He is always attentive and hardworking no matter what. His absence from our school and community negatively affects me and the students and people he interacts with daily. His arrest feels scarily personal because the issues this nation is facing as a whole are now impacting my school community, and my friend Paul has become a victim of the increasingly overbearing nature of ICE law enforcement in our area. Please free him. Thank you. That was my letter, and I hope you all consider acting quickly to protect the residents of Oak Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Nolan. It's an honor to have you with us. I was there in federal court when your letter was noted by the judge, and it really did make an impact. And I don't believe we have any other non-agenda public comment. Any other non-agenda public comment this evening? Okay, excellent. Thank you. We do have 3 proclamations. We will begin with the first. I'd entertain a motion to approve a proclamation for United Against Hate Week, October 19th to the 25th of 2025. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And a motion by Trustee Wesley, seconded by Trustee Eater. And I ask Trustee Eater if he would please read this out loud for us.
Yes. Whereas the Village of Oak Park, Illinois is a community that respects diversity and affirms our commitment to safety and belonging for all residents, and whereas hate presents a threat to communities everywhere and creates an atmosphere of fear and division, and whereas reported hate crimes have increased dramatically across the United States, and whereas the Village of Oak Park, Illinois is dedicated to preventing and opposing hate and intolerance in our communities, and whereas education, compassion, critical thinking, and cooperation are key to unlocking understanding and embracing differences between people. And whereas we seek to join other communities and cities across the country in this annual United Against Hate Week as an important step in bridging divisions while strengthening and healing our communities. Now, therefore, I, Derek Eater, on behalf of Vicki Skaman, President of the Village of Oak Park and Board of Trustees, do hereby proclaim October 19th through 25th, 2025 as United Against Hate Week 2025 in the Village of Oak Park, Illinois, and urge all members of our community to take an active stand against hate by participating in events, conversations, and actions that build safe, inclusive, and respectful neighborhoods and schools.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. And second, I would entertain a motion to approve a proclamation declaring October of 2025 as National Arts and Humanities Month in the Village of Oak Park. Motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Trustee Enyia and seconded by Trustee Wesley. And I have asked Trustee Enyia if you'd please read this out loud as the liaison to the Oak Park Area Arts Council. Thank you.
National Arts and Humanities Month, October 2025. Whereas the arts and humanities remain the embodiment of all things beautiful, meaningful, and inspiring in the world, the enduring record of human imagination and achievement. And whereas the arts and humanities enrich every aspect of life in our communities, strengthening civic engagement, fueling our local economy, driving cultural tourism, and exerting a profound positive influence on the education and growth of our children. And whereas Oak Park is home to a rich cultural landscape, from world-renowned architecture and historic landmarks to vibrant local theater, visual arts, music, dance, and literary communities that reflect our village's creativity and diversity. And whereas the nonprofit arts and cultural sector also strengthen our economy by generating $36.1 billion in annual spending and supporting more than 216,227 full-time equivalent jobs, while in Oak Park, arts and cultural organizations, festivals, and events help sustain local businesses and attract visitors. And whereas educational research shows that the arts help to foster discipline, creativity, imagination, self-expression, and problem-solving skills, while also helping to develop a heightened appreciation of beauty and cross-cultural understanding. And whereas the humanities through history, literature, philosophy, and all forms of thought and expression help us interpret the past, examine our shared values, and consider what it means to be human, a mission deeply reflected in Oak Park's commitment to equity, inclusivity, and dialogue across cultures. And whereas the arts and humanities play a unique, intrinsical, valuable role in the lives of our families, our neighborhoods, and our village, inspiring creativity, dialogue, and connection. And whereas October has been recognized as National Arts and Humanities Month by thousands of arts and cultural organizations, communities, and states across the country for more than 3 decades. Now I, on behalf of Vicki Skaman, President of Village of Oak Park, together with the Board of Trustees, do hereby proclaim October 2025 as National Arts and Humanities Month in the Village of Oak Park, and call upon all community members to celebrate, support, and promote the arts and humanities in our nation, and to actively participate in uplifting the arts and culture within our village, dated this 21st day of October 2025.
Thank you. And Camille Wilson-White, would you care to join us? Camille is the Executive Director of the Oak Park Area Arts Council. Thank you for being with us this evening and for all that you do. I don't know, do you have any, there was a video that you wanted to share, wasn't there?
No, we decided to cut it. It's
Oh,
not gonna be
my,
long. It's not end.
all right, well then we'll just take this opportunity to thank you.
Well, thank you. And the only thing I want to say is do art. We have so many organizations in this village, and this is the time of the year. The concerts are going on. Get out, enjoy. Go to the Lake Theater, see a movie in a movie house, have popcorn. It's free, the second bucket. Thank you so much. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, much appreciated. So all in favor, please.
Aye.
Entertain a motion to approve a proclamation declaring October of 2025 as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the Village of Oak Park.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Trustee Leving Jacobson, and I heard Trustee Wesley's voice as a second. Thank you. National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October 2025. Whereas October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and whereas breast cancer affects 2.3 million people worldwide, and whereas an estimated 360,000 people will be diagnosed with breast cancer in 2024, and whereas medical research has made great strides in discovering new prevention and early detection measures to diagnose breast cancer in its earliest stages, and whereas breast cancer, when caught in its earliest localized stages, has a 5-year relative survival rate of 99%. And whereas routine screening tests such as yearly mammograms are recommended for early detection of breast cancer before symptoms occur, and whereas during this month we pay tribute to those who have lost, provide support to those living with breast cancer, and strive to safeguard the well-being of future generations. Now therefore I, Vicki Skaman, President of Village of Oak Park and Board of Trustees, do hereby proclaim the month of October of 2025 as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the Village of Oak Park. Motion, please. Oh, we did that already. So all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're moving forward to the Village Manager's report. Village Manager Jackson.
Yeah, thank you, President Skaman. No report tonight.
Okay, excellent. Village Board Committees. Any updates at this time? We do, as usual, have provided for us by the Village Clerk's Office the Board and Commission Vacancy Report. Anyone interested in serving on a board commission can reach out to the Village Clerk's Office at clerk@oak-park.us. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as it's been presented. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Eater and seconded by trustee Wesley, who doesn't like his microphone this evening.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, I
Aye.
need a roll call for all of these actual items. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll? Trustee Eater first. Mhm. Go ahead.
Trustee Eater,
Yes.
Trustee Wesley,
Yes.
Trustee Enyia,
Yes.
Trustee Leving Jacobson,
Yes.
Trustee Straw,
Yes.
Trustee Taglia,
Yes.
President Skaman.
Yes, thank you. And on to our regular agenda. Entertain a motion to concur with the Zoning Board of Appeals recommendation, adopt an ordinance granting a special use permit to develop an EV charging station site at 6104 Roosevelt Road.
So moved.
And, okay, motion by trustee Straw and seconded by trustee Eater. Village Manager Jackson.
Yes. President Skaman, trustee members, Craig Baylor, Development Services Director.
Thank you, Manager Jackson. Craig Failer, Development Services Director. This is the case for granting special use for an EV charging station. The Zoning Board of Appeals is recommending approval of this proposed electric vehicle charging station at 6104 Roosevelt Road. Staff prefer to support our boards and commissions where possible, as well as support applications such as this one that recognizes and advances village goals, particularly those that are identified within our climate-ready Oak Park plan. However, in this instance, the proposed use would only be temporary, as is indicated in the agenda item. You may recall supporting an allocation of funds from the Housing Trust Fund towards an affordable housing project for the subject property that would ultimately replace the proposed EV charging station. Staff feel that the temporary nature of the proposed development of the site would not be the highest and best use of resources nor economically prudent. When we spoke with the Cook County Land Bank, who has an agreement with the proposed developer, they indicated that they would like to see the applicant conclude the entitlement process before furthering any discussion on the disposition of the property. While the EV initiative is desirable, the temporary nature of the use is not. The proposed long-term affordable housing development will also support village goals. In addition, it is our understanding that the proposed housing developer is amenable to the installation of an EV charger. Mike Bruce, our village planner, and Glenn Brewer, a ZBA representative, are available for questions regarding the process and recommendations, respectively. The applicant's representative, Emily Hoffman, will also be available for any questions the village board may have. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, very good. Do we want to start with questions or shall I summarize further? Go ahead.
You can go ahead, or you can ask. I'll ask a few questions. Yeah, at first blush, love EV chargers, but then, yeah, it sounds like if this proceeds, they'll just get ripped up and discarded. Is that correct?
Correct. They'll be removed. The idea is that the current developer would, if approved, they would be obligated through the Cook County Land Bank to install the EV chargers station. But then the idea is to sell the property to the the affordable housing developer, and those would be removed.
Is there any feasible way to keep them and have them used in the affordable housing project, or is that unfeasible?
Well, my understanding is if the developer, the affordable housing developer, were to use the property, they would probably have to scrape the site in order to get the foundation in for the building, because it will be pretty much lot line to lot line, with the exception of parking area. That would be all asphalted over. So they would have to, if they wanted to save them, they'd have to remove them and then put them back in.
Okay, is that a difficult thing to do? I know a lot of them are sort of installed. I don't know how deep underground a typical EV charger goes, but is it hard to uninstall?
I don't know if it's difficult to do that, but it is time consuming, and there are concrete improvements to hold the unit in place, plus there's all the electrical that goes under the ground that they'd have to probably relocate as well.
Okay. And this is like, I find this entire thing like kind of confusing, frankly, because it sounds like we have to, let them try to do this so that the land bank could like have their obligations met, or have the new property owner can have their obligations met as it's seen by the land bank. And so by blocking it, we would potentially just short circuit that entire process. Is that what is going to happen
If you
here, or
didn't-
what you'd like to see happen here?
Well, if you didn't support the
Yeah.
plan, ZBA, then they would not be obligated to put in the infrastructure in the EV station. So I'm not sure how that works with the land bank. I mean, Emily is representing the ownership. If maybe she can expand on that a little bit more.
Hear
maybe?
more, yeah.
Can try.
I can try my best. My understanding is that, well, first of all, my name's Emily Hoffman. I'm with Cook Engineering Group, and we're the consulting civil engineer for the project. So we're representing Eves Hughes, who's the owner of the property. My understanding is his contract with the land bank requires that he install these EV charging stations to fulfill his end of the contract before he can do anything else with the property. So if he was not allowed to install that, I'm not sure what the repercussions would be with the land bank. I know right now he has requested a number of extensions from them because there have been some developments. I guess as the project has progressed, there have been various factors that have kind of changed things and have kind of drawn the process out a little bit longer than expected. So right now he is on an extension from the land bank until I think December to try and get these installed.
And have we heard from the land bank about their
I
obligations?
reached out, but I didn't get response. You've been in communication with the land bank?
Yes. As I indicated, they wanted to see this play through the entitlement process, and then they'd indicated they'd have a further conversation about what to do with the property depending on what the disposition is of the village board. And that's all they really committed to.
Understood. I'm having a reminder here that I didn't start with public comment this evening, and I very much appreciate Mr. Donovan. Looking back at my emails, Mr. Donovan, you have been watching this property since 2022 at least. Okay, please join us. We appreciate your commitment.
Good evening. Hopefully this will be the last time we discuss this matter. And I do have one more handout. All right, I don't want to go into the whole history of everything that you've gotten from me since the board approved the $700,000 affordable housing grant for the community builders, and that there seemed to be no awareness of this other thing going on at that time. And so rather than rehash the past, because I gave you a lot of papers, I got a page from the findings of fact, or just one item from the findings of fact by the ZBA. And it says the applicant has provided reasonable assurance that its proposal will be completed in a timely manner and should comply with the village building code requirements. I'm fairly certain that the petitioner gave the same assurances to the Cook County Land Bank 3.5 years ago. And where is it now? It's still an empty lot. Asked for an extension, but that didn't happen until this year. So it was supposed to be completed in 1.5 years. 2 years later, the only thing that happened is that he tried to flip the property to the community builders for $450,000. And I think that's wrong. Now, what I did, in addition, on page 2, I filed a Freedom of Information request. I was denied some things because it's a legal matter, I was told, and also a real estate matter. But I did receive some copies of emails, and I want to go over those with you. And you start from the bottom up. So my hero in this is Bill McKenna, because in February 4th, when this first came up, this controversy came up, he said, "What is going on here?" He thought it was going to be an affordable housing project. What is this about the EV lot? So he didn't know. And his response received from Jonathan Birch was, Oh, that's another conversation that we had at another time. That doesn't quite sound right. Now you go to another email, and this one is from February 18th, and it's from, it's a response to a previous one, and this one is from the Cook County Land Bank, saying the developer is seeking an extension and plans to finish the project so they did not lose their investment. Once the project is completed, they can sell the property. It's not the village's requirement to make sure that this guy recoups his investment. It's a real estate speculation. It didn't go well. It should be closed. But the last email is February 21st, and this is from Mr. Thaler, and he's responding to a question from a representative of the community builder. Are there any commercial or other developments or streetscape improvements planned for the far south side of the city on or near Roosevelt Road? And his response above that is, the only one that's pointed out is the car wash. Nothing about the EV charging station, nor the controversy that arose because of the $700,000 and this $450,000. So I'll just go to the last thing that's in there, which was a copy of a letter to the editor in August, where I bring this up again. And you'll see that it's $450,000 and $700,000 from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. That $450,000 is 65% of the grant being given by the village to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I think there's better ways to spend that money than to spend 65% or more, because not only do you have the acquisition, you have the demolition for a temporary structure, then to squash this deal where it is, reject and deny the recommendation of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I hope you give that and all the other stuff you've gotten from me careful consideration, and please reject this petition. Thank you.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Is it out of line to ask you what you did for a living before you retired?
I was in housing and community development, working for neighborhood organizations, neighborhood community development corporations, and municipal government.
Thank you.
So,
And we also have a member of the zoning board here, Glenn. I did speak with Moss earlier, and he did affirm for me that, who is the chair of the zoning board of appeals, is that their 7-0 vote in favor of this was rather narrow to whether it met the guidelines for qualifying for a variance from the zoning. And so is there any other context that you would share with us, Glenn? If not, then that's fine also.
Good evening, just Glenn Brewer, member of Zoning Board of Appeals. Just to say that, first of all, Moss apologizes for not being here, but just what you cited was what was before us, and that's all that we made our decision on, the actual variance and special permit use. And that's what we took into consideration in the vote that we had.
And just for, to demonstrate that I do keep your emails, Mr. Donovan, you did share these with me in 2022, which was the public meeting report for the site, as well as the agenda, stating exactly what you shared with us this evening. So the question really seems to be, if we were to deny this for the greater use of which the board is already approved for the affordable housing, then does that slow the process down at all? Does that, we don't have any answers this evening as to what exactly, how the community land bank would proceed, or do we? No. Okay. Well, it would seem to me that and then we're just gonna have to hear the comfort of the board on this, is that it would somewhat force the community land bank to work with, how the land could be best used. However, no one's gonna give us a guarantee of that this evening. Okay, please.
Am I correct, and this question's for you, Ms. Hoffman, am I correct that the that the chargers that would be installed would be level 2 chargers?
I can't confirm that. I'm not familiar with which chargers he has proposed.
Do-
That was coordinated with Eves and his electrician.
Okay, do you know what the amperage of the service is?
I'm not sure.
No, okay.
That's
Yeah,
okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
okay. So, I am going to be voting not to confirm the decision to do the zoning variance. On Madison, we have level 3 charging. Nobody is clamoring for additional relatively slow chargers located not far from much faster commercial chargers. This is, clearly, and based on the excellent work of Mr. Donovan, this is simply a low-cost attempt to retain a land investment that the purchaser of the land never actually attempted in the 18 months that he was allowed under the terms of his deed to actually pursue the public good he promised in exchange for purchasing the property. I do not feel a great need to allow him to make a small investment in order to recoup a $300,000 gain by selling to a not-for-profit developer that is not in any way beneficial to the village. These EV chargers, I am a massive proponent of more EV charging in the village, but this ain't it. No one would have any reason to go and plug in their cars at this location. This is not EV charging oriented towards some other economic driver where the people will go and plug in and pop next door to Camp Bow Wow to hang out with the dogs. I don't think that's a service that Camp Bow Wow offers. I love Camp Bow Wow. Camp Bow Wow is awesome. I just picked up my dog from there not long before this meeting. Give him a shout out. But this is not a useful development. This is just a small investment to recoup $300,000 in land prospecting. And had the applicant actually followed through with the terms of his deed in a timely manner, that would have been one thing. He did not, and I have no interest in helping him recoup that. I would hope that the land bank would see that he did not actually attempt to follow through on the terms of the deed, that they would get the land back and would sell it at that same cost to community builders to actually do something wonderful for the community that we approved. I think that that's a far better path forward.
If I can insert before I seek other additional comment. Also, you said recoup. He paid $125,000 or $115,000 for this piece of property, and so he would be making
Massive profit, yes.
that actually was asked of us to help supplement the cost of purchasing that land in the affordable housing. However, with the good work of our staff, they would be pushing back on that if we were to approve this for a more potentially what would be fairer to the taxpayer, at least, in the agreement. So I'm with Brian on this. I can't approve this evening. I'm fairly confident that the land bank will work with us, and that's just my educated presumption here, and turn it back over to the rest of y'all. Who'd like to, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm still trying to get my head around this, but I am a little conflicted because it does seem like the owner is gaming the system, I guess you could say, to try to.
Now, I do want to say, just before we are, Eves Hughes was the president of the Oak Park Area Arts Council here in the village for many years, and he did do good things in our community. He is a good guy. We'll just have that additional context, please.
But I would say that it is a private piece of property, and I don't think anything is done illegal here. I don't think there's been any hint of or suggestion that anything is improper or illegal. And my concern is that there's no guarantee that the community builders would follow through, or that would end up in that path, because at some point, if the land bank gets it back, they're going to sell it to the highest bidder. They're not going to favor. I don't think the community builders is going to be a kind of an open process, I would assume. So I'm concerned about that. And I don't think that it's our role really to call out people who aren't doing, and the morality is a separate issue, but to call out people that are doing things that are legal and not appropriate, and saying that they shouldn't profit. We don't set the laws in that way, but I do have concerns about it. I just wanted to ask Mr. Brewer if you mentioned, I heard that the CBA it was a unanimous decision, but it was also narrowly, it was a narrow. What did that reference exactly?
It referenced actually the actual application and the information presented to us. We considered the land bank information to be outside our purview and actually your lane. So we decided on our particular lane, which was the request for a special use and the variances.
Okay. Very good. So, again, I do think that it is a private piece of property. I don't want to see it go out of the realm of an affordable development. And I haven't heard that there's anything illegal about this. So I would like to hear the rest of the board and what they think, because I don't think there's any assurance that it would still end up as an affordable development. That's a concern.
I think it's very unlikely. And the affordable housing is also a great mission of the land bank. Okay.
Very good.
I guess it's my turn. I don't think I have that much to add, other than to echo the priority of getting this property as soon as possible to the community builders for the project that was approved earlier this year. So unless there's a way forward that's clearer than what President Skaman has described, I'm not sure I can agree with the decision of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'll just add the little bit that I have to share. I did go through the process of several years ago of trying to acquire property through the Cook County Land Bank, and it was not for me. It was for a project. But it wasn't super competitive. It wasn't like highest bidder dynamic kind of real estate transaction. So with that little bit of experience, I'll just say I do have some confidence that there's reasonableness and potential to go through it the way that has been described. But I agree, this has been extremely confusing and kind of frustrating that it's not a clear choice before us. But I'm definitely leaning towards disagreeing with the with the zoning board.
Corey?
Yeah, this sucks. Is there any way we can pause this pending a deal being made between the community land bank and the community builders and Eves? And then, so this can just get disposed of without coming back to us?
Well, I think part of the problem, and I'll let Craig interrupt me at any moment, is that the land bank doesn't want to interrupt a process in a deal that already exists. Our action tonight would change that. If we decided to not approve the zoning request before us, then that interrupts the process so that the community land bank can then take a different path forward, which we would hope for, and I would presume that the will of the community, since municipalities usually have the first right of refusal with the land bank, and at the onset, would matter.
Okay.
Craig?
That's correct. I mean, basically what they told us is they wanted the process to be through the entitlement process through the village board make a decision. They are aware of TCB and their interest in the property. So it's not like it's not known to them. So I don't know how that will function depending on what the board decides, but they specifically said we want to see the entitlement process completed, and then we'll have a conversation.
Got it.
So if you put it on
just
pause, I'm not sure what that will do to the conversation.
If I can just add a tiny bit more, I think because it is, and I'm inferring, in all fairness, I'm inferring, but, it's, Eves did purchase the property before us. So he is, so they're letting him go through his process. And the land bank wouldn't want to presume what we want of the property before we do something like what is potentially before us tonight. But different than the ZBA is looking at the guidelines that are before them. Does the applicant qualify? Answer's yes.
Right.
We, as the village board, get to consider the overall benefit to the community at large.
Right.
And we have already previously stated, which gives us also, I think, some legal standing here, is that our preference is an affordable housing development. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, because we are on record as indicating our preference, since we decided to give the community builders money to acquire this property, right? So I think our interest in it and our ultimate hope of disposition is well documented. Yeah, this is one of those things where I'm kind of with Jenna on this. I don't want a decision here to delay getting the property to the community builders so that they can actually build this development. And I also don't want them to basically be at the mercy of paying 3X when ultimately, based on my reading of the materials and following along, over time, is that this property this entitlement or this encumbrance on the property has existed since the acquisition of it, and the owner has delayed implementing that encumbrance all the way up until it became profitable for them to do so, which kind of pisses me off a little bit, just to be honest. So this one is, I'm going to vote no.
Just curious, does anyone know, why didn't the community builders initially, years ago, have an interest? Did they just subsequently have an interest, or was there any? Why wouldn't they just buy it? Why didn't they buy it? Anyone know why they didn't buy it way back when?
I do not know why they weren't interested in it when it was for sale. They didn't really approach us until after Eves had already kind of approached us to develop a parking lot there. So I do not know when they came into the picture or when they even knew the property was for sale. I don't know if someone reached out to them about the property after the fact, but we have no record of that.
Okay, I just think that somebody who was smart enough, I guess you could say, use that word, to see value in that property and purchase it. I just feel like, and they're not, again, I'm not crazy about it because I do think it is gaming the system to some degree. But I don't think I feel comfortable being an arbiter of how capitalism should work. I mean, it is a free enterprise, and they have the ability to transact this the way they see fit, as long as it is within the confines of the legal framework, the structure. It's legal. So I think I would, with Corey, and so I don't think I could support that. I mean,
You can't.
I would support it. Sorry.
You would support the ZBA vote as it is?
Correct. Sorry.
Gotcha. Which I think is opposite of what Corey is saying at this point. Corey?
Yeah, I'm sorry, one quick thing too here. Because are we sure that he's going to build a charging station on it and then they're going to demo the charging station on it? Right? Like, is this vote going to create e-waste?
The engineer is here telling us that exactly that.
Yeah, I just want to just be 100% sure that that's what's going to happen before I vote.
I just wanted to give a little clarification too, that some of the delays were out of Eve's control. When we came on board on the project, he had already had a contractor lined up that, my understanding, passed away and had reached out to us. And we had previously done plans for a decent sized parking lot on the property that we were working through permitting. So there wasn't nothing done.
3 years.
I understand. But I just wanted to, make you all aware that there have been things going on in the last several years that that he's made some attempts to get things going, I guess.
What year did he acquire the property?
2022.
I'm not sure what year he.
March 2022. Okay, that's post-COVID. All right. Yeah.
But I can say that he has been working with an electrician and has the electric service to the property for the station, so he's making progress.
Well, now that he can make $250,000 doing or more.
Yeah.
300.
Okay, but the intention overall is that he's going to install this EV station, which will allow him to meet his requirement to the land bank. And then once he has the title free and clear, he will then sell it to the community builders, who will then scrape it because they have to build a building where there will now be EV chargers.
That's correct.
Okay. We seriously, this is before us?
I know, for me, it's not so much that somebody was, capitalism, I agree with Jim, you have every right, okay? But the waste of doing this and then.
Yeah, I'm just not. It's like voting for somebody to come in and put a gas station in only to come in and knock it down the next day. Like, that's ridiculous. I'm not voting for that.
And I have to say, I just have to wonder if his motivation to have the electrician and everything lined up now isn't because there is a potential reason to finish the.
I can say that we received plans for the electrical servicing and things quite a while ago. So that was how we were able to put them on our plan. So it hasn't been in the last couple of months.
Yeah, we approved the project, the affordable housing project when? January? Is that about when you got the call?
Well, we were already through some permitting with the village and MWRD at that point, so.
I appreciate you, thank you.
I'm sorry, one last thing on this, right? Like, so, EV station on unimproved land, parking lot on unimproved land, car wash on unimproved land, basically a covered land play, right? I mean, the reason that folks buy land and do these things is because they're quick, and then they're cheap to demolish, right? But this has been 3 years. So if he wanted an EV station on this land, it would be an EV station on this land. If he wanted a parking lot on this land, there would be a parking lot on this land. It does not take 3 years to do these things, right? That's the very nature of why they exist. People buy land, they think it's going to appreciate, they put a parking lot there, they make a little bit of money to pay the property taxes while the land appreciates, and then they flip it to a developer who then builds something bigger, and they take the profit, right? And in this case, this is what he could have did, and then this whole discussion wouldn't even be happening because we would have had a parking lot that we all would have hated, but we would have had it, and we would have had it for several years, and then the community builders would have purchased the parking lot, and they would have then tore up a parking lot, which is going to be a lot cheaper than tearing up an EV station, and then built the development, right? Like, this is the way these things work, and I'm saying that for folks at home who might not know this. So this whole thing is unconventional and, quite frankly, is BS, and I just want that on the record.
And the whole purpose of working with, or the land bank working to sell property is so that it's no longer blighted. Sure. My daughter worked at the Camp Bow Wow when she was in high school. She's now a teacher. And it was a vacant lot then. So it was highly unsuccessful. So gaining access to that land for that cost, then I don't think was just. Go ahead.
And I do just want to clarify, like, I have absolutely no problem with someone buying a property from the land bank, doing, like, fulfilling some specific thing, like putting the EV station, and then holding it until an opportunity to develop it comes along. And if that is what had happened, then we wouldn't be having this discussion. So for me, it's that it's not that he that this is like going by all the rules and it's fine, and it's there was something on the deed that said it had to be done within 18 months, and we're sitting here 3.5 years later, and we didn't get any benefit from the land bank sale, and this minimal investment in the property is going to go to waste. So it's the modest sustainability gain of a short couple months of EV charging stations is a massive sustainability loss, because we're going to be ripping up the concrete the broken up concrete that's there now, putting in new asphalt landscaping and EV chargers, and then ripping all that up to do new construction. And like putting in asphalt and then ripping up asphalt is just a terrible environmental thing. There are no actual sustainability gains. It's a substantial sustainability loss to do this and then undo it quickly. So I want to be clear. This isn't an opposition to capitalism and buying undeveloped land to later sell it to a developer if you actually fulfill the terms of that. That to me, that's the issue, and I cannot approve the zoning application when I know that the purpose of that zoning application is to create incredible waste.
I could keep talking because there's the things said in this original announcement that are just ridiculous. He said that the T station will fulfill a future community need while creating a more sustainable environment, as 50% of all cars sold in the U.S. will be electric vehicles by 2030. Since an electric vehicle can take hours to charge, Hughes plans to offer restaurants and other entertainment for drivers while they wait. Do we have more to say, or can we vote?
I'm ready to say no. I think I was not very clear before. I got some clarity after this conversation, so I appreciate everybody filling me in and given the history. It seems like a waste of resources, a waste of time to allow this to proceed. So I'm going to vote to deny it, and hopefully that will accelerate the process of getting this to be handed off to the affordable housing developers. So that's where I'm going.
Okay, Greg, you have something more to share?
I would recommend trustees Straw and Eater made and seconded the motion, which was to concur with and approve and adopt the ordinance, that they withdraw their motion and instead present a different motion, perhaps to deny the application.
Yeah, or a friendly amendment to the motion to make it a motion to, is it deny, or is it, what's the proper verb there? Reject the zoning board of appeals recommendation and adopt an ordinance.
And deny the application for special use.
Okay. So I would offer a friendly amendment to reject the zoning board of appeals recommendation and deny a special use permit.
Okay, I can second that, yeah. So withdraw the
Yeah,
original.
so then the motion that's before the board is what was just stated. So a vote in favor of the motion would be a vote to deny the approval.
Yes is deny.
Yes.
Okay, and so Trustee Enyia, did you want to share anything before we go ahead and vote?
Thank you so much, Mr. Donovan. I've trusted this guy for many years, so no, I appreciate all the work on this, but also our commission's work. I know, it seems like it's not going against you for the reasons I hope the board, that the commission understands. But yeah, I didn't think it was going to take this long to get to it. I just, that I feel like we all know what's wrong with this, on multiple levels. It'd be one thing if it was just one of those things, but it's multiple things. So I don't think it was taking me too long to figure out this is a bad project. Something that I don't think anyone wants to see on so many different levels. Sustainability, I have no problem as well as anybody else. That's how the world works. People make money and they do it in ways that they figure works within the law, and that works within the law. He found a way to make money, but he's also figured a way to drag his feet and not fulfill his obligations through that process. And I just think the climate issues and sustainability issues are a real huge factor, in hearing that after you read that made me more mad that he made those claims of things that he would add to the space and never actually completed any of those things. So yeah, it's a no for me.
Jim?
There was a discussion here previously about tearing down Village Hall, and the board at the time was okay with that and gave its consent and said it gave the direction to staff. I mean, talk about a waste. If you're worried about, I'm not worried about one asphalt parking lot. I'm worried about this entire structure at the time. And I'm not trying to make a point and make it difficult. I'm just suggesting that I don't think those discussions happened then, but we're worried about this parking lot and the chargers, which I mean, it's not ideal. I said that before. I agree. But we also have many developers who delay a lot of things in this village. For South Boulevard, that one development that's just east of Oak Park Avenue, that guy's been in here half a dozen times, and we never said, "Well, we're done with it." We've entertained delays, and I'm not suggesting this is the same, but there are other situations you should consider. But again, I'm okay with moving ahead. So thank you.
Okay, well, we respect, the varying opinions on this. I mean, my vote is largely because there's a better use for this land. And it's one that the board has voted on before and approved. And, and that's that for me. In all due respect, our consideration with Village Hall was also what was gonna serve the community the greatest for the longest time into the future for the greatest cost. And then the previous board did an excellent job of changing how it is that we work with developers who take too long on projects. And now you see a fee structure when that happens that didn't exist before. And you see a new development contract as we, let the peat sit for 30 days and let that contract die so that we could renegotiate in the strongest way possible. And now we haven't seen any delay since that happened. So the previous board did not just let, we responded with a change in policy that now changes how development happens and the accountability happens for developers in the Village of Oak Park. With that, I would ask Clerk Waters to please take the roll. And so for clarification, the motion has been modified so that those who are not agreeing with the Zoning Board of Appeals' initial response, which we have also heard was largely with a narrow scope of the guidelines of the ZBA, not this greater purview, which is the purview of the village board, as stated by the member of the ZBA, Glenn Brewer. And so you can now vote in the affirmative based on the conversation that has been had. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Straw,
Yes.
Trustee Eater,
Yes.
Trustee Enyia,
Yes.
Trustee Leving Jacobson,
Yes.
Trustee Taglia,
No.
Trustee Wesley,
Yes.
President Skaman.
Yes, and thank you. And so for educational purposes, in overriding the ZBA, would we have needed a majority? No? Okay, interesting. I was unclear on that earlier, but either way, we're good. So do appreciate all of the work that Eves Hughes has done in this community over time with his work with the Oak Park Area Arts Council. And this is just a project that did not work out, aligned with the current village board goals. Thank you. And moving next to concur with the Zoning Board of Appeals and adopt an ordinance approving a special use permit for the Dutch Brothers Coffee, authorizing a drive-through facility at 316 Madison Street. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Craig Failer.
Craig Failer, Development Services Director. This request is for a double drive-through coffee shop. The applicant also received some variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Mike Bruce, our village planner, will be able to walk you through the process. Glenn Brewer is also here representing the Zoning Board of Appeals if you have questions for them. So I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Failer. Good evening, President Skaman and board members. Mike Bruce, village planner. So the petitioner, Dutch Bros Coffee, seeks special use approval to construct a 2-lane drive-through facility at 316 Madison Street in the MS Madison Street zoning district. They propose to demolish the existing building and construct a new, roughly 1,200 square foot building. Additional proposed improvements include landscaping, lighting, new parking lot striping. The rear alley access to the north of the proposed building will be closed to public and only accessible to service and delivery vehicles. All customers would enter and exit from Madison Street. The site was previously used as a drive-through restaurant, similar to the proposed coffee shop use. The proposed double drive-through configuration results in conflicts with certain village requirements, such as the bailout lane and the menu board requirements that are not readily addressable through the design changes. But overall, this proposal would provide ample internal capacity to prevent stacking and traffic issues within the Madison Street right-of-way. Additional proposed improvements, such as landscaping, would enhance the appearance of the site, and the use itself would not function much differently from the previous drive-through restaurant, which featured a similar configuration and layout. The new building would also feature a walk-up window, encouraging pedestrian activity. The alley access restrictions should also mitigate some potential traffic issues within the alley. The proposed drive-through coffee shop should be compatible with the surrounding uses and provide a neighborhood-serving use on a currently vacant site. To accommodate the proposed site and the building configurations, which as stated, features a 2-lane drive-through facility. The applicant requested variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals to 1, allow the building location to exceed the Build-to zoning requirements. 2, allow on-site parking to be located to the side of the building rather than to the rear of the building, and allow 1 bypass lane to service 2 drive-through lanes. And the final variance requested allows more than 1 menu board on site. The Zoning Board of Appeals approved all variance requests. On October 8th, 2025, the Zoning Board of Appeals held a public hearing on the petitioner's special use application. At the hearing, 1 person spoke in favor of the application, 1 person spoke in opposition to the application, raising concerns about conflicts between the proposed drive-through and pedestrians using the crosswalk on Madison Street. The applicant suggested installing a sign near the crosswalk to yield to pedestrians. The Zoning Board of Appeals finds that permitting the operation of the drive-through facility at the property is consistent with the spirit and intent of the zoning ordinance, and its operation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the neighborhood. The Zoning Board of Appeals recommends that the trustees approve the special use application with 4 conditions. 1, that the applicant install a pedestrian biker sign that warns of pedestrian crossing. That the applicant add a bicycle rack on the premises, which is already actually required by the zoning ordinance. 3, that the applicant install wheel stops along the fence located on the eastern side of the lot, also another requirement that's also required by the zoning ordinance. And then the 4th and final, that the applicant install a metal railing along the west side of the bailout lane. Staffs ask that you concur with the Zoning Board of Appeals and adopt the ordinance approving the petitioner's request for a special use permit for a drive-through facility. As Mr. Fahler stated, Mr. Brewer is here for additional questions, and I'm available for questions also.
Very good. Trustee Jaglio.
I just have 2 questions. Number 1, is the developer or applicant here going to demolish this building? Is that what this says here?
I'm sorry, say that
They're
one
going
more?
to demolish the building?
Yes.
Okay. And the second question is, are they going to put in a brand-new asphalt parking lot? Is that going to be
Yes.
a part of it?
It's
So
gonna
they're
be a
going to
new
rip up what
parking
they
lot.
have, replace it, tear the whole thing down, and rebuild it?
Let's see. Actually, I'm not sure if they need to demolish the existing asphalt. I guess depending on the condition, they may just restripe the existing parking lot.
It does say something about,
Restriping, it's definitely part of it. I don't think they definitely plan to demolish the building.
it says new
But,
parking lot, so I don't know what that exactly means. When it says new, I would think it means replace. I just want to make the point that it is, if we were to apply the same discussion to the standards, some of these things, this would be questioned because we'd say, oh, they can't demolish it, and we're putting new asphalt in. And I'm not trying to get in an argument with anyone. It is what it is. But this is clear, they are going to do that work, and that is contrary to the sustainability goals to some degree. It looks like a good building to me, actually. I'm not going to weigh into how they develop it, though, because it's their business. But I would support this, so I just want to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I am hoping that after this last comment, we move forward to the actual agenda item. But I just want to remind my colleague that our mandate is to protect our taxpayers. And in the previous agenda item, we lost revenue for 3 years while the land was undeveloped to the taxpayer. And then it was the taxpayer that was going to supplement the cost to TCB for purchasing the land. So those two, because they would have been asking us for more money to then purchase the land. So to me, that also is a challenge where this is something that is revitalizing a piece of property that for, I think, a use that is productive and appropriate for the land, which is the purview of the ZBA to determine. And so I will be in favor, and now I will leave the discussion to my colleagues. However, I would invite anyone to ask Glenn of any questions as well. Trustee Enyia.
No, I think it's a good use for the building. I think for a while, not seeing that KFC that hasn't been there for a number of years. I, love the snack pack. I used to love that snacker. But just saying. But it doesn't exist anymore, and it's been sitting there unused for a period of time. Kids travel through that lot every day to go to school. It creates a little bit of a blind spot to some of the school administration, I believe, as well, when kids are traveling. I know for a fact because I usually actually sit in that parking lot to drop off my daughter's backpack if she forgets it, or her basketball bag. So that's where I sit and wait. And I've seen that, some kids, can get lost in the pack around that building. And I think being able to know that there are eyes on it, that there is a use for that building will, get kids back to walking on the sidewalk and making sure they aren't using these type of shortcuts that potentially make a dangerous situation through the alley that goes right between there. And I can tell you with certainty, people do not always look for children and use that as a quick way to get around the traffic on Madison and get onto Ridgeland. So you just have to keep your eyes peeled for that. And I think that this offers also a safety situation for us, which is better than what the alternative is. In a building sitting unused, I think for that period of time, I wouldn't say just because, I love the environment, I would let a dilapidated building sit there over years. I would want to see that building reused over time or taken down and something else be put in its place. And I think this is a perfect use. Everyone in Oak Park loves coffee or chai tea. So I think there's an opportunity there for more people to get access to that here in Oak Park, which it seems to be on the rise. And we just lost Buzz Cafe, so, maybe there's another opportunity for someone to find a new favorite coffee spot in Oak Park. I'll be voting yes.
Brian, Trustee
I will be voting yes, though I am curious, can you talk a little bit about the traffic pattern for traffic exiting the drive-through? Is it going to be right turn only? Is it?
That is my understanding that it will be right turn only.
Okay. Because that is exiting into an area where you've got a right turn lane, a straight lane, and a left lane, as well as a bike lane before you get traffic that's going eastbound. So that's one thing that I'd like to make sure is thoughtfully done to actually promote people following that right turn only and not understanding it to be a suggestion, as sometimes occurs with those kinds of right turn only signage. And to the point about whether or not demolition is inconsistent with what we just talked about, there it was, we're building something and immediately demolishing it. Here it's a unused lot of land and someone's applying to develop it. I have no opposition to development, and as I said, if the prior application we were talking about, they had come in and they had developed it in 2022 in the way that they said they would, it wouldn't even be a point of conversation. It's I don't want to back up a truck full of asphalt, lay it down, and then come back a couple weeks later and scrape it off. It's silly. Here, it's a building that's sitting empty and unused, and we have an excellent opportunity to be seeing some sales tax revenue, as well as some increased property tax revenue, and I like both of those things, as well as continuing to diversify the many ways I can get a caffeine fix in and across Oak Park, which is important to me.
You like sugar?
Sugar?
Please. Trustee Wesley.
All right, I'm super supportive of this. I think putting this parcel back to use would be a good thing for the village. To Trustee Straw's point about sales tax revenue and increased property value, cause an increased property tax revenue. Highly supportive of those things. I do share concerns about the potential traffic pattern and the intersection of all of those various different kind of use cases causing some issues. So I think we will have to keep an eye on that as this develops. I got a couple questions, and they're really kind of general questions. Are they required to come to the ZBA because they want to do dual drive-throughs, or is it because they wanted to do a drive-through in general?
The latter is correct. Drive-throughs in general require a special use because of the traffic concerns. So we want each individual item to be vetted.
Okay, even though there was a drive-through there before.
The grandfathering of that drive-through lapsed a long time ago.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. All right. That's interesting. Thank you for that. I didn't know that. And then, yeah, it actually negates my second question. So that's all I got.
Quick question, random. So if somebody had bought that closer to, or utilized that building sooner, would they have been grandfathered into the
Existing drive-through? That's correct.
Okay. How long does that normally last?
The zoning ordinance currently only allows 6 months now.
Okay, thank you.
For non-conforming use to be continued.
That's good to know. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Now, it's not necessarily that we're not approving of drive-throughs, it's that we want some say as to how they function.
Exactly.
Very good.
My only point in asking that question, right, is that anything that drags the process out costs additional money, right? And so that kind of factors in when folks think about if they're going to do business with us. So in situations where we already have vetted the use case, I'd like to see if we can kind of let that ride and reduce the time in the process. So that was the point of the question.
I appreciate that too, and I share Trustee Wesley's concern that we identify ways of just keeping things moving for people willing to invest in our community. I'm curious, though, if that did, and not to counter Trustee Wesley's point, I think it's still valid, but if it delayed the process in any way, would the project have required the zoning process if the drive-through wasn't a concern?
I'm sorry, if the drive-through wasn't a concern, you said?
Or
if they didn't propose a drive-through?
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, I know you're not opposed. If the drive-through direction didn't need to be part of a vetted process.
No, I mean, a drive-through in general requires the vetting process of a special use permit. So we want public hearings. We want engineers to look at it. We want the community to weigh in on it. So
Very nice. Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. And Craig?
Just one quick point is that when the KFC drive-through was developed, the road profile was different. With this drive-through, now you have bike lanes, you have, it's a different profile than what we saw before, so it needed probably some vetting, regardless of whether it had to go through a process or not. It's a different application.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Craig. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Though, I guess the thought that I have on that is whether or not it still needs to go through public hearings versus just going through village engineering. So that would be, yeah.
Well, I do think that permitting processes are meant to protect us overall. So, and people in their investments and help people. But I think we, look for those opportunities. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll just say, the questions that I had were really around, does this impact the bike safety of Madison? I believe that was kind of discussed through the conversation that's already happened. So I'm a yes. I'm ready to move on this.
Okay, so then we're ready to call the vote? You're good? Okay, thank you. Clerk Waters, if you'll please take the roll.
Trustee Wesley,
Yes.
Trustee Straw,
Yes.
Trustee Eater,
Yes.
Trustee Enyia,
Yes.
Trustee Leving Jacobson,
Yes.
Trustee Taglia,
Yes.
President Skaman.
Yes, okay, congratulations. Thank you, Glenn, for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
And yes, thank you, Mike, or Michael, Bruce.
Need that jacket. I need that jacket in my life.
That's nice, yeah.
All right, and then I would entertain a motion, no, this is a motion by Trustee Enyia, seconded by Trustee Leving Jacobson to grant $150,000 to the Living Room Project. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and the same stays. Motion by Trustee Enyia and seconded by Trustee Leving Jacobson for now discussion. And Village Manager Jackson.
Yes, President Skaman, trustee members. So this motion, just some brief remarks before we get into the presentation. But this motion contemplates a grant request of $150,000 over a 3-year period of time for a total of $450,000 on a one-time basis to support a pilot initiative called the Living Room Project. The project tonight there's going to be some information presented on the project tonight by Executive Director Cheryl Potts of the Community Mental Health Board. If the board decides to support this motion, staff would advance this item to the Finance Committee to identify a funding source for the Finance Committee to review and subsequently maybe make a recommendation to the full board on how to fund this request. So with that introduction, I'd like to introduce, I think our speaker tonight is Cheryl Potts from the Community Health Board, who's going to lead us in a presentation about what this concept really represents. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Village Manager Jackson, President Skaman, and trustees. My name is Cheryl Potts. I'm the Executive Director of the Community Mental Health Board of Oak Park Township, and I'm here with Shelley Lustrup, who is the Executive Director of NAMI Metro Suburban, and we are going to talk to you about the Living Room Program. We do have a presentation that we sent over, so I don't know if that's loaded up or, okay. Please don't rely on me to do tech because I'll mess it up.
Not seeing the folder. Hold on a second.
Great, thank you so much, Jonathan. Let me just orient myself here. There we go. Okay, so I will start off this evening by providing you with the foundational context that informed our decision to pursue a living room program in Oak Park. I will then hand over to Shelley, who will give you a basic overview of what a living room program is, how it works, its history both nationally and locally, and its impact on the mental health crisis care continuum. And then I will close this out with an overview of the pilot project structure, the indicators we wish to measure, and the budget. There have been multiple efforts in Oak Park over the last few years to better understand the mental health crisis response system and how we can better meet the needs of residents. Back in 2020 and 2022, prompted by the murder of George Floyd, the village contracted with Barry Dunn to conduct an operational assessment of the Oak Park Police Department to, among other things, make recommendations for alternatives to traditional policing responses. An entire section of that final report and recommendation that was provided to the trustees was a call to provide more appropriate mental health interventions to those in crisis. In October of 2022, influenced by the Barry Dunn report, the village manager established a task force of local leaders in mental health, chaired by me and Allison Davenport, the CEO of River Edge Hospital. The purpose of the task force was to review the Barry Dunn report and advise on how to actualize an enhanced mental health response model in Oak Park. We had the benefit of having Chief Johnson and then Chief Kobaleski at the table during that process, which allowed us to review current operations of the Oak Park Police and Fire Departments. We also brought in national experts to present on effective models of mental health crisis response. Concurrent to the activities of the Alternative Calls Task Force in 2022, the Village of Oak Park Health Department developed its Community Health Strategic Plan, or the I-Plan. Every 5 years, the Oak Park Public Health Department is required by the Illinois Department of Public Health to conduct a community health needs assessment and use the results to create a plan, known as the I-Plan, to maintain its status as a state-certified local health department. One of the 4 goals developed in response to the needs assessment addressed mental health and substance use disorders. Both the Alternative Calls Task Force recommendations and the I-Plan specifically recommended opening a living room program in Oak Park. All of the reports and recommendations I listed on the previous slide were data-driven, but I wanted to provide a few other data points just to underscore the need among Oak Park residents for a living room program. Earlier this year, as part of our statutory requirements at the Community Mental Health Board, we conducted a survey of 522 households. Of the respondents, 63% lived in households where someone was diagnosed by a health professional with a mental health challenge. Yet nearly 20% were not engaged in any form of care. This is consistent with what we are seeing across the country: lack of insurance coverage, high cost of care, workforce shortages resulting in long wait times for treatment, and other factors are causing significant barriers to engaging in mental health services. We know from local and national data that when individuals are not engaged in treatment and support for a mental health disorder, they are more likely to suffer an acute crisis episode. Data from both Rush Oak Park Hospital and WestCon, our 911 dispatch, show that Oak Park residents are not immune to mental health crisis. Over 27% of mental health crisis visits to the Rush Emergency Department and over 50% of 911 mental health crisis calls are from Oak Park residents. Furthermore, the village's ECHO team, which was created to provide linkages to services, not necessarily direct treatment, for Oak Park residents, noted that 15% of their engagement was related to mental health services. So there are limitations to these data. The survey conducted by CMHB cannot be extrapolated to Oak Park at large, as it is not a representative sample or a large sample study. In addition, we were not able to get data from other sources, including West Suburban Hospital, or about those who went outside of Oak Park for crisis services. We did try to get those things, but just had an inability to get that data. So these holes in the data are exactly why we want to do a pilot project, because we want to better collect data and have a more complete picture of what the need is within our community. Just one other point, and these figures are retrospective as well. We have every reason to believe that mental health crisis will only continue to rise over the next few years. Nationally, we are poised to see, and you know it by our current shutdown, as well as just reading through the papers, that we anticipate many households losing insurance coverage due to the Affordable Care Act marketplace and expiring subsidies causing people to have increased cost and losing care. We also expect that many individuals within Oak Park will be losing their Medicaid coverage as well. So now is the time, from my perspective, for us to review our existing safety net programs and do all we can to strengthen them in order to support Oak Park individuals and families. Now I want to turn over to Shelley to talk about the model.
All right, good evening. As Cheryl said, my name is Shelley Lustrup. I am the CEO with NAMI Metro Suburban. I have been with NAMI for 9 years, and I was actually hired originally in 2016 to help open our very first living room program located in LaGrange. So I get the pleasure of telling you kind of about the program. The living room model is a nationally recognized model. It is originally intended to be an alternative to the emergency department for individuals experiencing an increase in their mental health symptoms. We know that the ER is not always the best place for folks who are having a mental health crisis. It is loud, overstimulating, a sterile environment, and that is the opposite of what somebody needs in that moment. At the both of our other living room locations, one thing throughout kind of the years that we've also seen is that the living room can not only be used as an intervention, but as a preventative tool. So it is a safe space where somebody can go to speak with a peer. We call them recovery support specialists. And a recovery support specialist is someone who is living well in their own mental health recovery. They use their experience and expertise to quickly build a rapport with someone, to sort of level that power hierarchy, if you will, where they can just sit and say, I get it because I've been there too. And that can be that much hope that is given to somebody who hears that. So in the kind of preventative tool piece, we again see the living room as a place where if someone has that rapport already built and they know there's a safe place they can go, instead of even getting to that crisis point, they could come into the living room. It is staffed as, again, by, I said, recovery support specialists. At least one of the recovery support specialists on staff meets the state requirements as a mental health professional, an MHP. That allows them to do a brief risk assessment upon entry. So every individual that comes in gets a brief risk assessment, just ensuring that they don't immediately need a higher level of care. We can facilitate hospitalizations. I'll speak to that a little bit. We can facilitate a hospitalization from a living room program, but that first screening is really to just make sure that somebody is they're okay and they're safe to be here and in this space. So then a guest moves in to a kind of one-on-one space, a room, and it is, again, just a comfortable, low lighting area, and they can get peer counseling or peer support. That really looks like whatever the person needs. Some folks come in and they just need somebody to listen, and it's a lot of talking on their end and a lot of just active listening from the team. Some folks come in and they're looking for resources. They may say, I had a therapist a few years ago. I don't have a therapist anymore. Do you have any, resources that you can help connect me with? And that is something that linkage to resources and other care is something that the team is equipped to do. We also have different recovery tools that the team can use. That's anything from a safety plan to a RAP plan, a wellness recovery action plan, which sort of walks somebody through sort of the different stages of before they get to a crisis. What are some different tools and interventions that they have that they can use? So in addition to kind of all of those pieces, we also do at our other living rooms a social determinant of health screening. So just again, kind of tying back into that linkage of other services. If someone says that food insecurity is an issue for them, we will make sure nobody leaves, empty-handed, whether that be with resources or something more practical that we can give them. And the main piece here, of course, too, is just that it really provides folks with hope and hope that recovery is possible. So nationally, in 2009, living room models popped up in both California and Colorado. And in 2012, Illinois saw its first living room program at Turning Point in Skokie. And then you'll see here the living rooms that our affiliate has opened. So 2016 was LaGrange, 2018 was in Broadview, and 2020 in Summit. In 2020, when we were able to open that Summit living room, the state began funding living rooms. And then in 2023, they required all living rooms to go, that were state funded, to go 24/7. And so we were fortunate to have the infrastructure and the support to be able to do that. So both the LaGrange and Summit location are 24/7, 365. There are 25 living rooms that are state funded. There's a few other living rooms similar to this that may be a pilot project or that are only open 8 to 10 hours a day. But from the state funded aspect, there's about 25. And from a national average, a living room guest, 84 to 93% of living room guests were deflected from an emergency department. Just to speak a little bit to NAMI Metro Suburban and the success that we have had in our living rooms and in our models. As I mentioned, LaGrange opened in 2016. We've seen over 1,800 guests at the LaGrange location, and since 2020, we've seen over 1,100 guests at the Summit location. The Summit location is also fully bilingual English and Spanish. We have a 46% return rate. So what that means is 46% of people who come to us once come back at least a second time. And as I mentioned, with that kind of both the preventative and the intervention kind of weight of looking at the living room, I think that's really important because we don't want this to be just a quick Band-Aid. And we know if somebody's escalated and they come in, they need to be de-escalated in the moment, but they also need continued follow-up support and continued connection to other community-based resources. So the higher that number is for us, the better, because it means that somebody had a good experience and they found some help and some hope in the program, and they're coming back because they know that this is a safe place that they can go if they need support. This 87% stat, we also do what's called a SUDS, a subjective unit of distress scale. And so it's just a 0 to 10 scale. We ask when someone comes in, how are you feeling? 0 to 10, 10 being the most. And then when they leave, we also ask them the same question. So we see an 87% of people who come into the living room, they leave feeling less stressed than when they arrived. And then lastly, just in our living room programs in particular, just over 98% of all of these guests that we've seen were stabilized without needing hospitalization. And even then within that kind of 2%, not all of those were involuntary hospitalizations. One other really, I think, important and cool part of the living room is that because we have peers working there, if someone comes in and they are either deemed to need that higher level of care, that they need to be evaluated or going to a psychiatric hospital, our team can kind of help to normalize that process, walk them through what that may look like, tell them, here, I was at the hospital before, this is what happened, I've been there, and just really being able to explain different parts of that to them, because that can be really scary. And so with that, we're then able to help facilitate a voluntary hospitalization. Again, at the other programs we have, the other sites, we have really great relationships with local hospitals. Of course, with Rush Park, knowing that they don't have psych beds would be something that we could, work with them on, but getting somebody, again, in that sort of safer space. And then the last part for mine is just the kind of the general impact on the mental health care system. of having a living room. And so one, as I mentioned, we're going to be reducing the emergency department overload. This is a cost savings. We're not seeing people coming into, a one-time visit at the emergency department can be thousands of dollars. And so diverting them to a community-based mental health program is saving funds. In addition, with police and fire response, again, having those individuals in their time not have to be spent responding to this, and to have a place that either the police can tell somebody that they can go, tell a family member or a loved one. In our other programs, we have little tear-off sheets that have the information on it, and we could give, 50 of those to a mom of an adult son who, may be struggling, and that 50th time, maybe they bring them into the living room, and that's a win. And then also just improved long-term recovery goals, which sort of ties into this other piece here of a recovery versus a stabilization mindset. So with the living room program, again, it is much more of a recovery mindset. We know that recovery is possible, and it's not just that quick fix in the moment of, here, let's get you de-escalated, and then maybe you get sent off, with 30 days of medication and no continued support, and you may end up right back in the emergency department. And then also, just of course, we know that there is stigma surrounding mental health, and having a living room program, being able to speak openly about it and support it, anything that we can do to talk about mental health always is beneficial to reducing the stigma surrounding it. So I'm going to hand it back over to Cheryl.
So based on the need that we are seeing, the effectiveness of the model in other communities, as Shelley talked about, and the desire to paint a more complete picture of Oak Park's needs, we are proposing a 3-year pilot project. There is potential opportunity to convert a storefront at 816 Harrison next to NAMI's existing drop-in center to serve as the location. This location is desirable as it's near the Oak Park Blue Line stop, is near to Rush Oak Park Hospital, and is centrally located in the village of Oak Park. If we were able to obtain this space, it provides for a flexible leasing structure too, that would allow NAMI to continue the program after the 3-year pilot if funding is received from the state of Illinois, but it does not lock them into a long-term commitment if the pilot shows that either services are not needed or if long-term funding is not obtained. Initially, the pilot would be open from 12 to 8 p.m., 7 days a week, 365 days a year. As noted in the Barry Dunn report, Oak Park does not show a need for a 24-hour-a-day program. In addition, NAMI's existing living room programs show that the highest rate of visits come between that window of 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. So this, coupled with collaboration with Thrive Counseling Center's 24/7 mobile crisis team, would be able to respond to those off hours, and it would point to these hours being ideal for the living room being open. The goal of the living room is not to duplicate or supplant the work of hospitals, Thrive, clinicians, or the ECHO team. And this is a key takeaway that I hope you hear loud and clear. Instead, it's meant to complement and strengthen our system of crisis response. The state of Illinois recommends that to address mental health crisis, communities should offer someone to call, somewhere to go, and someone to respond. And what they mean by someone to respond is a mobile crisis team who can go to you if you're unable to get somewhere. In Oak Park, we have 988 as someone to call, and Thrive's mobile crisis team as someone to respond. So the living room program would add to these options by providing somewhere to go. The goal is for all of these to work together to provide a comprehensive safety net for people in crisis and reduce harm. NAMI has had great success in Summit and LaGrange doing that, and they work to establish procedures to work seamlessly with the community mental health treatment center, which is out in that area, it's Pillars, as well as the local hospitals, police departments, and EMS. And we expect the same coordination of efforts in Oak Park. Ultimately, our goal is to, one, determine whether or not we do need a living room program for the long term, and two, if so, apply to the state of Illinois for funding after the 3-year pilot ends. The state of Illinois is currently the funder for both the Summit and LaGrange programs. To do this, we need to measure the following performance indicators, and there's actually more detail in the written proposal than is on the slide, so you can refer to that. But we want to include basic measures such as the number of people seeking living room services and their zip code of residence and their referral source, so we know where people are coming from, where they live. And we also want to measure the impact. We want to know the engagement and the overall outcome of the intervention, including whether people return to the living room program, whether they are hospitalized or deflected from hospitalization, whether they received a de-escalation of symptoms when they leave, as well as how are they doing at the 30-day mark. The goal for this is not just, like Shelley said, to de-escalate the symptoms immediately and then the person goes on their way. The idea is to help prevent the cycles of crisis that come up. And we also want to know, have they had further engagement with clinical and social services? Looking at the budget, in the proposal, we submitted a budget that outlines more detail, but for purposes of actually being able to read the slide, I sort of summarized them into categories, including salaries and benefits, program supplies, occupancy, miscellaneous, and indirect. The salary and benefits includes funding for 3 full-time staff, 40% of a direct supervisor, and another 15% in support staffing. Program expenses include things like general supplies and food and snacks for participants. Sometimes participants are there for quite a long time, so having some refreshments is always helpful. And the other important piece in this line item is to fund transportation assistance, because not everybody in a crisis, you don't necessarily want to tell someone to get into a car and drive somewhere. So oftentimes if they need that assistance, that transportation assistance can be provided. Occupancy includes rent and utilities, just the basics. Miscellaneous is sort of a catch-all for some of the smaller things like professional development training, liability insurance, and costs associated with posting job descriptions and things of that sort. There's also a budget that is for capital improvements to the space. Those costs that are approximately $85,000 have already been approved by the Community Mental Health Board of Oak Park Township. So any capital costs associated with this will already be paid for. So that is not a part of the request to this board, but I just wanted to point that out. And of course, our request to you is not for full funding for this project, but instead to be a partner and collaborator. As mentioned before, CMHB will be paying for the capital repairs. And in addition, NAMI and CMHB has worked to secure funding from other sources as well. And so some of them are in the process of hopefully being approved, and some of them have already been committed for the 3-year process. The idea is to get sustainable funding for this 3-year period so that we can focus on getting the operations running and collecting that data, which are so important for knowing the future. I also want to point out, too, that the Community Mental Health Board of Oak Park Township, which is a significant funder in this regard, the board has approved 3-year funding only for the pilot project. So I want to emphasize that the request before you is not going to extend beyond that 3-year mark. We are fully committed to transitioning this project to the state because we know that local funds cannot support something to this effort in perpetuity. So coming from a fellow financial budget, having to look where that money is, I just wanted to be very clear about that. So that's what we have, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, who'd like to start us off this evening? Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you for the presentation and for the proposal. Excuse me. Obviously, very supportive and grateful for the work you did to prepare and bring this before us and to secure the funds that you've already secured. I have a couple comments, a couple questions. I'll start with the questions. How long before it could be up and running? Like, what is your time frame thinking to get operational?
It could be, as Cheryl mentioned, currently we have our drop-in center, and then literally right next door, we are using that space for our internship hub. And then in that same building, in the upstairs, we just vacated, we had our education team up there, and we just vacated the upstairs. And so we have worked with the landlord. He's willing to hold, he is holding the space right now. So if we move our internship hub upstairs, we could get started as soon as we have the funds. And again, Cheryl had said with the capital improvements, they're ready to go with that. So I think we could start pretty soon. And I think we had talked about even aiming at January. I mean, we know construction, so I don't want to, knock on wood. But I think it would be, we're not talking 6 months from now, as long as we get the kind of the other commitments. That sounds right.
Yeah.
So that means
we're looking. We could. Early 2026 is essentially when it could happen. Because the capital, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shelley, but the capital repairs are minor in order to, it's more cosmetic in nature and getting the appropriate furniture and setting up the confidential spaces. And so essentially once that happens, and there are staff hiring would happen as well. But NAMI does have a core base of CRSSs who they work with because they work with through the College of DuPage, who does all of the training. So they have a pipeline. So unlike other hiring efforts, it would be a little quicker to get up and running.
Okay. That was a related question. In the proposal, it says staff are racially, ethnically, linguistically, and culturally representative of the communities served. What would that mean for the Oak Park? What would that look like for Oak Park living room?
So I think in our Summit living room, as I mentioned, is fully bilingual, English and Spanish, and then we have making sure that everybody is either is bicultural as well. So for the Oak Park living room, I think we're more than willing to look at like the needs. Is there a specific language that we would need to have somebody who could be there almost always, or if not, what are some of the other options? I know other programs have different translation assistance, either apps or like the I'm trying to think of like almost like a
interpreter service.
Yes, thank you, an interpreter service for a lack of a better word. That's much better than app.
Don't use an app,
yeah,
please.
I'm visualizing it. So, truthfully, from a staffing perspective, I'd be very, very open to what that would look like and what the needs would be, and the kind of lean on the advice of everyone.
Right, because as we know, the incidence of mental illnesses and mental health challenges are not distinct among groups, but questions of access certainly are, and that's not just because of financial and insurance challenges that were mentioned, but also because of lack of representation and culturally competent and humble
absolutely
professionals. So I want to I guess, articulate how I'm thinking about why I think this is the right investment for us to make. Cheryl mentioned the I plan representing sort of like our community articulation of their priorities, what they think we should be focused on in terms of community health. And as mentioned, mental health and substance abuse disorders was identified as one of the 4 priorities. And then in terms of like our board priorities, I'm always, of course, thinking about violence prevention. And we know one of, not the only, but one very important piece to preventing violence to oneself and to others is mental health services and supports. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, I think it's it supports our goals around equity and access for how we should be thinking about everything, all of the services we try to provide. So that's it for now. Thank you again.
Okay, I see Jim, and then maybe Chibi. Go ahead.
Oops. Thank you. So, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. I'm a little bit conflicted again, and I don't want to be a contrarian every time I speak. But tonight, I guess I'm a little bit of a contrarian. And I wanted to express, first of all, my thanks, because I think the Community Mental Health Board does a great job in our community, and there's no doubt about that. And it has done so for, I think, 50 years, so that's really impressive. As some of you may be aware, I served on the Oak Park Township Board for 6 years as a trustee, and before that I was actually the collector, which was a position they eliminated eventually. But then I was the liaison member to the Community Mental Health Board for several years, so I know firsthand the work that's done there, and it is very, very important and vital to our community, and I think it's underappreciated, I will say that, in our community. Looking at this program, I do believe, and I strongly believe it's an excellent program, without question. I think it fills a need in our community. It could fill. I mean, it's a pilot, so we have to see the data, but it could very well fill a need in the community. I noticed the Village of River Forest isn't listed as a potential contributor, and I didn't know why they might not be if Forest Park was, but that's just a side point, because really the bottom line is that I have a hard time even saying it, but I don't think the village should be paying for this program. And I want to be clear about that. I think that it's a bit of kind of a scope creep for us, because Mental Health Board was set up back in the early 70s or mid-70s as what they call 702 board, which plugs itself into the township. The township levies on behalf of the Mental Health Board, and so the levy that they receive comes from that. The reason I think that was done, I would assume, was because there is an overlap in the mission. The mission is very compatible with a social service mission, which is very important in our community, as I said. So I do think that the township really, they did offer to contribute a small amount. I think the township, and they do great work, and I appreciate all the efforts Tim Thomas and everyone on the board does there. But in my view, this is a township project, that they could, a proposal that they should consider funding fully, and they actually have the capacity to do that. They have what our equivalent of our fund balance, our general fund balance, is called their town fund, and their town fund has almost $2.5 million in it currently as of the end of March. So, and the township typically doesn't utilize they don't dig into their reserves to any great extent. In fact, we saved the town fund balance to fund the purchase of the senior center many years ago, and it was like a need that we ended up using some of the money because we didn't have any other need for it, really. So, and I know the Mental Health Board is contributing money, a lot of money to this, but you also have a fund balance of over almost $2 million. So, again, I don't want to sound difficult about this, but when I look at it, between those two fund balances is over $4 million. I would like to see that. If we assume that role, we're crossing a line, in my view, of doing more in the way of social services. I know ECHO is important, and it's different though because it has a direct impact on our in our policing and our hopefully in our policing and our fire and our paramedics. So it relieves that, and those are our concerns as village board members. We're fiduciaries of that. And tonight we received our proposed budget, and if we were to consider adopting this, our levy would be over 5%, which I think would be a shock to a lot of residents. So, but that's not the issue. The issue is where the funding comes from for me, and it really is, I appreciate this, but I do think personally I would find it hard to support this.
If I could respond to a couple things. I want to clarify. I'm not sure where you got the numbers about the fund balance. The Community Mental Health Board doesn't have a fund balance of $2 million. We are currently, I have to pull the numbers. We just got our audits more in the ballpark of $750,000. You may be looking at an old audit, which was before the investment into the Community Mental Health Board's offices at the CRC, which was $1 million. And we have since, I know many years ago, we had a very significant fund balance, but we have really brought that down. And with the investment into the CRC, we have a 35-year lease. And the purpose of having that lease is so that we can have more investment on a yearly basis into programs, including similar to the living room program. So of our $1.8 million, 80% of that goes out the door to programs. The vast bulk of it is going out in grants. And we are looking right now at our fund balance policy, knowing that we are going to see an escalation in the unpaid mental health services that Oak Park residents receive. So according to the Community Mental Health Act at the state level, if an Oak Park resident is seeking services and has no way to pay for it, the Community Mental Health Board is on the dime for that bill. So we know with Medicaid, changes that are occurring with Medicaid as well as health insurance, we do not anticipate us having a large cushion over the next 3 years. And so those are fiscal questions that we're talking very much about at our board meetings. When it comes to the township's fund balance, I can't speak as specifically to that, but I do attend those meetings. And I know that there are concerns about the increases in general assistance that have been occurring. And so that is one area that the township is looking at as well. If the Community Mental Health Board could do this alone, we would. We would have done it 3 years ago if we could have done it on our own. And so, I very humbly say as I come here that we're asking you for partnership because we can't do it on our own, and the township can't do it on our own. We are part of the township. We think that it could be a good opportunity for the village because this exactly is meant to be a resource for police and EMS. This is meant to be a way to help divert people away from the police and from 911 and to provide another opportunity for mental health crisis response. And so that is why we are approaching you with this, because we feel that this is an opportunity. And I work very closely with the ECHO team, and I have a lot of respect for them. Their work is really predicated on linkages and to get people to resources, not to address the problem head on. And they provide a very good role in that. I work with them on the Homelessness Coalition, and I have a lot of respect for Kimberly and Maxie. So I don't want to put So I'm afraid that if we have the ECHO team and then we keep saying, well, they can do that, they can do that, they can do that, it becomes unbearable. And then services don't get done. So I think this is a good complement to the work that they do.
Okay, thank you. I was referring to the balances that are on the audited financial statements dated March 31st of 2025. It did show, and again, if you spent it down, you spent it down with the CRC, I understand that, but the town fund balance is over to almost $2.5 million. So, and again, I do think this should be a township expense, and the only thing I want to finish by saying is, you know, we're looking to the village for $150,000 per year. The township has offered $10,000, and I mean, I do think that's a small amount relative to what they could do. And when I was on the board, we always were looking for ways to utilize our fund balance in a good way. This seems like a good way, so that's my point. And thank you for your proposal and your good work.
Okay, so thank you, Trustee Enyia.
No, thank you so much for the presentation. I truly appreciate it. You know, I guess I'd ask, did the township give any specific reason as to why they weren't contributing anymore?
10,000.
So the Community Mental Health Board is part of the township. So I do want to point that out too. And so when we come together in our work, the 3-year commitment from us is going to be $415,000, and that should be seen as from the township. Township also has 2.5% of the tax bill. So I also want to point that out. And again, I cannot speak on behalf of Supervisor Thomas or Manager Mitchell, but I know that the discussions around potential cuts in support services that are needed for seniors is looming large, and we know the work that they do there. General assistance, we're anticipating significant increases there. And so when I brought this to the township, this was us coming together with this $415,000. So I don't want it to be seen as the township's doing this and CMHB is doing this. We're doing this in lockstep.
No, I truly appreciate that. I think, you know, for me in the past, being able to, you know, work with President Skaman and trying to figure out some solutions for people in Oak Park that are facing crisis and mental situations, and trying to figure out what are the best solutions for them. We sometimes run into obstacles of overcrowding or not having the solution right there and then, and dealing with people dealing with some pretty severe situations that, you know, some of these exact methods could have helped out, and these opportunities could have helped us out in. And so when we heard that an opportunity like this was going to be available, this is something I know I talked, you know, President Skaman and I talked at extensive length about it. And I think being able to see the presentation, but also have some clear-cut objectives to, hey, this is what we're trying to solve. This is, you know, how this can be more effective for us, seeing this, you know, slide about the 87% reduction in distress, people coming into this situation, seeing, you know, going through some adversity, but then, you know, also getting through it and then coming back and knowing that this is somewhere that they trust that they can get the help from, and people that they're coming back to. I think that's huge. And then this over 98% without hospitalization after, you know, some really bad experiences really helps to understand that this is doing its job, but it, like you said, it's in coordination as in addition to what our police officers are doing, in addition to what our ECHO team is doing, because it's not just one department or one group of people who are going to shoulder this burden. It's going to take a community effort around it. And I could honestly care less about, well, it's your job to do this or your job to do this. I think as a community, we have to figure out how do we find that balance and make sure that we all are coming together for the solution. I think at the end of the day, it's all coming out of our taxpayers' dollars. So we're just trying to figure out the best way to give them the support that they've asked for and they've shown us in the different surveys that we've gone through over the years since COVID started, hearing about mental health being the top priorities. And I think that this does a great job of addressing what is a top priority to Oak Park residents. And I think that's something that, I love that there is hey, this isn't forever for you all. This is for 3 years. This is what, that is, and this is going to be offloaded into something that we hope the state will then lift up, not something that we expect to keep coming back to the board every year as a fund. So I do appreciate that there is that thought process into it and letting us know how much that commitment truly is over time. So I appreciate it. I'll be in support of it, and it's something I know our residents asked of us.
Would like to go next, Trustee Straw.
There are a couple of things that I really like about this proposal. One of them is we talk a lot about intergovernmental cooperation, and here we're looking at the Community Mental Health Board, the OPRF Community Foundation, River Forest Township, Oak Park Township, the Village of Forest Park, and Rush Oak Park coming together to look at funding this, and this is something that we as a village have been talking about through the I-Plan for some years now as being a real need, and I think this, combined with the presence of the Community Mental Health Board at the CRC, these are real steps towards addressing some of the stigma around mental health, because the statistics that you put together, where 63% of households are dealing with mental health issues, a significant portion of which are going untreated. A big part of that is related to the stigma around mental health, where people are unwilling to go out and seek treatment because it feels different than going and getting treatment for for a fever or a sprained ankle or what have you. But we really need to be looking at and thinking about these things holistically. We need to be thinking about people as a whole person. And so I think that this is in line with our I-Plan. This is in line with the Barry Dunn recommendations. I appreciate you bringing this proposal forward, and my colleagues for the motion and second. I will note, this isn't the first time that this board has been considering, an opportunity that a partner has brought forward that the board members motioned and seconded. We supported some Chamber of Commerce grants in the last budget cycle that I believe Trustee Wesley and Trustee Robinson brought forward with a motion and a second. This isn't outside of the ordinary course of how we consider some programmatic spending, and I do think the perspective you offered that yes, this is a 3-year commitment. This is a little under $500,000 over the course of 3 years, with the understanding that after those 3 years, there is no expectation that this will be an ongoing commitment, and instead the goal is to either collect data sufficient to show the state that there is a need and there is demand for the state to continue supporting a living room program here in Oak Park, or to maybe discover that there's not the support, the demand for such a program, and that we can find alternative avenues to addressing that need. So I am supportive. I do think that these living room programs and this model has been successful here. It has been successful elsewhere across the country, and particularly as it allows us to de-escalate crisis situations. I think it has a real possibility of saving lives here in our community. This isn't a small thing. This isn't this is a life-saving kind of program, and I think that's important when we're looking at what the cost here is. I think that this is a very small and reasonable cost for the kind of impact I expect it to have in some residents' lives, and even if it's only a few lives that it saves, that's absolutely well worth the cost.
Okay, Corey.
Thank you, ladies, for the amazing presentation. As you know, Cheryl, I am a huge supporter of mental health awareness and assistance, and I continue to be so I am very supportive of this as well. There's some really interesting stats that you brought up that I really just wanted to dive into again, and Trustee Straw mentioned a couple of these, and so did Trustee Enyia, but they bear mentioning again. 98% stabilization without hospitalization. That's amazing, right? That right there sells it for me, right? The reduced ER load. My mom was an ER nurse. I've seen and heard many stories about the number of folks who come to the ER who could be better served in a different situation if only that situation existed for them, right? And so this is creating that situation, and I think, I'm extremely supportive of that. I love the long-term recovery, right? Because sometimes it's not just about the point of crisis, right? It's about managing through and getting folks back on their feet so they can learn to live again, right? And this is a program that is encouraging that. I like the fact that it's a living room. It removes a lot of that stigma, right? You could just kind of go in and you can get help without feeling like you're in this clinical sort of space, right? It's very low resistance maybe, or low aggression. I'm not quite sure what the term is, right? But very welcoming. Maybe that's the way we'll do it. And so I really do. I support this for quite a number of reasons. And so we have another agenda item tonight, so I am not going to talk a long time, but do note that I could talk a long time about all the things that I support about this particular program. So thank you very much for bringing it forward. Thank you to my colleagues for bringing the motion forward. This is something that I truly do support quite happily. I want to touch on something that Trustee Taglia said, though, and also what Manager Jackson said earlier, right? It does cost money, and we do have to find where the money comes from, right? And so I do want to be cognizant of that as the budget season evolves. But for me, this is a priority, so I'll be working hard to find the money for it. That's all I have.
So I'm last. Well, thank you. It's been said, but I'll say it again. Thank you for all your work on this presentation, and also obviously all the work you have been doing for our community. I'm in support of this as well. Like, sounds like the consensus of the board broadly is. Big fan of the sort of data-driven nature of the presentation itself, and then also the data-driven goals that you have to measure the potential success, or potentially if there's, I'm sure you'll learn some things, right? Just by having these metrics in place. I think it's a great way to run a program, and to treat it as a pilot in that way makes a lot of sense, especially as you try to bring it to the state level for funding should it be successful. While you were giving the presentation, I was reminded of the framework in which the Living Room program uses, where you're having folks who've lived through these experiences, helping folks that are seeking that help. It kind of reminded me of the Climate Coach program that we put together at OPCAN, which is obviously very different in terms of what we're trying to do. But it's the folks who have that lived experience helping folks seeking that help. It just destigmatizes. Maybe that's the word we were looking for. There are many words to describe the environment in which you're trying to create. And I think that this seems like an excellent way to try to achieve that. Very in support of it. Yes, the funding, we will have to have conversations about that. But I see it as a priority as well, especially considering the priorities that this board has set currently and in recent past, is making this something we really want to prioritize. So I'm in support.
Jim?
Just a couple follow-up things. There is a reason why our taxing bodies are organized into separate units. We are fiduciaries of the Village of Oak Park, and I know you all know that. But there are an unending number of programs, valid and worthy programs in the village that we could fund and that meet board goals, that are important to residents. This is a very good program. As I said, I'm very impressed with it. I reviewed it. It was very, very extremely impressive. But I would just say we can't do it all, and I think that when we are talking about this in the future, it'd be helpful if, when we have the discussion about the expenditure, we have the same connection with how we're going to do it, because it puts us in a difficult spot here coming into a budget which actually is going to be very difficult for our village. So I just want to mention that. So we want to, we need to have these things connected in a way that we understand that, and that there's a mechanism to connect the two, because it's easy to just say we'll do it. Now we have the hard part of figuring out where it's going to come from, and are we going to tax residents, or are we going to work it through some other cut somewhere? I mean, those are the questions that we have. Those are our choices. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, so I'm going to balance this out. I was one of the early people, and I thank you to Trustee Enyia for talking about it, who shared with folks what a living room is. And even with, and village staff early on in my term here. And I do see a benefit, and I know that identifying or really collecting the data is going to happen through the pilot program itself, because while you've got an excellent presentation that highlights the value, destigmatizing of seeking mental health care is where we're going to see the numbers, the need in Oak Park, because right now, and I think also it was fair to note that anxiety is only likely to go up, as much as we'd like to do what we can in our leadership to counter that in any way that we can in support and in leadership. We don't have control over all things, and but having somebody in your life that you know would benefit from care, but you can't get them to make that appointment and go, but you might in a moment of crisis in an evening get them into the car and drive them to this place where somebody with lived experience can walk them through the next steps and help them feel like it is possible. Is something that I support. Looking at this list of, commitments that you already have, I think was probably, I would have loved to have been, observed some of the conversations. You've got the the Oak Park River Forest Community Foundation to commit for 3 years. That's no small task. But there might be additional partners in the years out. There might be, additional funding sources in years out that we could identify. I have to wonder, since I'm kind of this regional mindset, it just seems to be the way that I work. Derek thinks about, his relationships with sustainability, and I'm like, if Oak Park keeps working to solve all the problems of the world in a bubble, we're not going to make the impact that we want to make. So then I have to wonder, is there a county opportunity here? Because I know that some of my colleagues in other communities, they don't have the revenue sources instantly to fill this gap, but that's where the county is supposed to step in. And that does kind of bring me to the logic of how, our governmental bodies are set up, so that we should have the revenue sources to serve the people that live here and in, just the way government's supposed to work throughout our nation, in an ideal world. And that when we do think about, and I've said it here at this table many times, so I think I do have to at least validate what Jim is saying, and he had a lot of experience of being a trustee at the township. When I do Government 101 workshops for Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and League of Women Voters, or, residents of Brookdale, I explain the township is your social service arm of government. They do have the potential to raise their levy a little bit, kind of ridden under the radar, so that that's less of a threat. And I think we have a board there at the township where we can have those conversations down the road. Our budget seasons are not aligned, and so I'm willing to carry this conversation forward to the Finance Committee, and obviously there's more than enough support at the board table for that. But I also know that Derek and Jim and Brian and I are on the Finance Committee, and so we are going to have challenging conversations as to where to identify those funds. And I would then challenge my colleagues for, are there additional efficiencies that we can find elsewhere? We'll have to have that conversation. But this is, I hope going to make a difference in people's lives. I also, noting that I do have some fear that the 3 years is gonna be hard, because we don't know where, the state's gonna see cuts too, because the federal government is not funding things the way that we might if we were prioritizing where those funds went. So there's an unpredictability there as to where this funding can come in 3 years. But I do hear that you're saying that the Community Mental Health Board, as the lead in organizing this, is sticking firm to that 3 years. So I'm just gonna find myself leaning in on that. Although, if there's anything I can be as a champion in additional revenue sources, even if they're private, for this, then I would make myself more than available to that cause. And potentially even in the interim, because, ourselves and even other people on this list might find ourselves needing to lower that amount in a second year or third year if we can work together and find additional ways to supplement. So it's more than worthy of anything that's ever come before us. But I think this is a message for our entire budget season. We've have more difficult decisions to make. We knew that. I said that at different times. I think my colleagues have said that at different times. It's just, we have to make tough decisions. So, thank you. And then we'll look to communicate those next steps with the Finance Committee and work through that in partnership. Okay? But congratulations. This is a discussion, right? Or is it an actual motion? It's a motion. Okay, very good.
I believe that the motion that was made was based on the text of the agenda, which was to grant the funding. So trustees Enyia and Leving Jacobson made and seconded that motion. That's what's before the board right now.
Right, so they did make a motion in a second before our discussion above and beyond the fact that it reads that way. So we do have the motion on the table, so we can go ahead and discuss, or take a vote. But, and the motion as it's read out loud is fine?
Well, the motion as written is to grant the funding to the organization. So based on the board's discussion, I believe
I
a friendly
see.
amendment to refer to the Finance Committee as discussed would be appropriate.
If that's okay with trustee Enyia and trustee Jenna to send this.
Yes.
I did not follow right away, so I guess, okay, so there's a friendly amendment then to send the $150,000 for a living room to the Finance Committee. Is that sufficient?
Yes.
Second.
Thank you. And so now we can take the roll. Thank you. Clerk Waters?
Trustee Enyia,
Yes.
Trustee Leving Jacobson,
Yes.
Trustee Eater,
Yes.
Trustee Straw,
Yes.
Trustee Taglia,
No.
Trustee Wesley,
Yes.
President Stamen.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much, and congratulations to all. And now we have, let's take a motion to go beyond 10 p.m.
Oh, my God.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we have a discussion regarding a resolution or ordinance prohibiting the use of village property for federal civil immigration enforcement in staging areas, processing and locations, and operational basis. Motion, please. Oh, we don't need a motion, it's a discussion, my bad. Okay, so this motion is coming from trustee Jenna Leving Jacobson and trustee Eater, and they both have done the work of putting together considerations for the board. Can I ask you to kind of start with that for the sake of time too? And thank you for doing it.
You want me to read it? Oh.
Yeah, we should probably give them.
Well, the public doesn't have
Right,
access to
right.
it, but you can do the quick version.
Okay. Well, Trustee Eater will help because it's late. It's not that long, right? I guess I'll just start by saying this is top of mind, top of conversation, concern for everybody I've interacted with in the community. And even though we've been talking a lot about all that we can do in this moment, we only got a couple of emails and the one public comment. But one of the emails said something that I thought kind of encapsulated the why behind bringing this forward, and that is this community member said, "Now is the time for our elected leaders to do whatever is in their power to resist the terror that ICE is bringing to our communities. Please act while you can." And so that's, I feel like, where I'm coming from, where we're coming from, a continuation of our conversation last week around folks who are extra vulnerable or more visibly vulnerable in our community, brought forward by Trustee Wesley, and really continuing that conversation, thinking about what more can we do as a village in our role here. And so I'll let Derek get to the meat of the document, but I'll just add that the intention is also to be decisive and hopefully have something to vote on at our next meeting, but also with the understanding that it's iterative. We're going to continue to hopefully experiment with things that work to protect each other and protect folks that come to our community. And so as experiences unfold and as ideas come to us, I'm hoping that we can continue this sort of group effort to look at our roles, our levers of power and influence and relationships across the community. And so, yeah, so there are some specific things that we want to accomplish tonight and at the next meeting, but also with this open mind that we keep going.
Well said. I will, I have so there's a document that Trustee Leving, Jacobson and I put together and shared with the board, but for the help of everyone else in this room and those watching, I'll read it out loud. Before I do, though, I just,
Do you have
it has been in the last couple months, the situation continues to ratchet up and escalate. I forgot almost that we were, at the ICE facility, what was that, 2 weeks ago? Several of us were, where a township trustee was arrested and detained by ICE. And just yesterday, about 200 feet from my house, a resident of Oak Park was detained by ICE on Harvard Street, right in front of the school where my kids go. And they pulled someone out of their car. He was following them and letting people know that ICE was driving through our village. And at gunpoint pulled him out of the car and arrested him and detained him. He's been released since, but that put the school, Lincoln Elementary, on a secure lockdown in response to this situation by federal officers who are masked and not identified, by the way. So it's no longer theoretical. It's no longer happening elsewhere. It is happening here in Oak Park. And we heard a public comment tonight from a high schooler who's feeling unsafe at the high school. We've gotten several emails just recently. It's probably people who saw on the agenda that this is coming up in support of doing something. Do something, please. So it's in that spirit that we want to start this conversation. We want to welcome the input from our colleagues on the board. We want to welcome input from staff and also members of the community. There's a lot that we can do. There's also lots of things that are beyond our power to do anything about. And so it's finding creative ways to leverage the power that we have at this table and in this village to protect our community. So with that being said, I will read through the memo that we'd presented and shared with the board. So dated October 21st, 2025, we would like to direct the Oak Park Village staff to adopt an ordinance modeled after Chicago's ice-free zone executive order passed on October 6, 2025, and the resolution adopted by the City of Evanston on October 13th, 2025. This document represents a starting point for actions the village board and staff should take to help Oak Park prepare for increased federal immigration operations and detentions within our community. In the past month, several Oak Park residents have been detained by ICE and DHS, and tensions, confusion, and fear have risen among our residents. We welcome input and concerns and any ideas that may help make our community safer and more prepared. As a starting point, we see this work being done in two parts. Number one, prohibiting use of village property for federal immigration operations. We would like the village to adopt language, possibly amending our welcoming city ordinance, prohibiting the use of village property for federal immigration operations. This has already been adopted in the city of Chicago, as is mentioned. Also, Cook County, the city of Evanston, and then just last week, Berwyn City Council directed their staff to draft similar language for the city of Berwyn. The ordinance should also allow for the placement of physical barriers, such as locked gates, to limit and block access to village-owned properties so that they are not accessible for immigration enforcement purposes or any ICE activity. While the village owns some property, there are many other properties owned by other governmental bodies in the village, namely the township, the library, D97, D200, and the Park District. We would like to see staff and the board coordinate with these bodies to adopt similar policies. This topic was brought up on Saturday at the October 18th iGov meeting, so folks know what we're referring to. The second piece is a village-wide communication plan. We'd like to create a shared communication plan and funding with the goal of every person who visits, lives, and works in the Village of Oak Park knows what to do when observing federal agents. This plan should include, but not be limited to, shared signage, handouts, and other materials for use across government bodies in Oak Park, best practices for residents and organizations hiring day laborers like roofers, landscapers, planters, movers, who face real risks of racial profiling and ICE enforcement, coordinated outreach, leveraging existing relationships and commissions to high-risk businesses, organizations, communities, signs for businesses and residents that say "We protect all workers" or "ICE-free zone," potential use of village-wide newsletters, emergency notification systems, and other channels to quickly notify residents of ICE activity in their area. I believe that was quite a lot of what the public comment we got already is. There's just confusion about what's going on and where. So it feels like we need to get on top of that. And then finally, trusted resources to support the development of materials include PASO, West Suburban Action Project, and ICER, the Illinois Coalition for Immigrants and Refugee Rights. So we included a few example signs that have been used by other municipalities in this document. And then we appreciate feedback from our fellow board members, staff, and community on these proposals. So we'll turn it back to you all.
Kevin, do you have our presentation?
Yeah, I'll share a few comments. First and foremost, want to thank the trustees for offering up all the background information to support their interest in the motion. Staff has taken the information under consideration and has begun to do a legal and operational analysis to understand the implications around what's being requested. We understand that there are multiple communities that have adopted resolutions and executive orders. So we have staff here with some preparation and available to answer any questions, but I think there's some additional probably work that needs to be done on this and for us to have the opportunity to communicate back. So we're also here listening to make sure that we're interpreting what your specific interests are as we position ourselves to come back and respond to these interests. The one thing that I will acknowledge and ask is around the issue of timing. So I think there's a specific request around an ordinance which we require the board to adopt it. So our next official regular meeting after tonight is November 11th, I think is the tentative schedule, November 11th. We have a finance committee meeting on November 4th, another one on November 6th, and so if there's action being desired action prior to November 11th on this item in terms of a board adoption of an ordinance, I would ask it would probably need to be like a special meeting that perhaps maybe even on one of the finance committee nights, the 4th, probably.
Yeah, the 4th is the 4th, right? Not the 11th?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, the 11th is an actual regular meeting. The 4th, we are actually vacating that regular meeting in deference to the need for our budget. Yes. So we're doing a finance committee meeting, a longer finance committee meeting on November 4th. That's the plan. Yeah, so I think if we wanted to do a special meeting on the 4th, otherwise we'd be waiting to the 11th for the next regular meeting to consider action.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate you
But we're
pointing that
here, we have staff here to answer any questions, even talk a little bit about what we've done so far if necessary.
out. Do you want to start with everything that you've done so far? Because I think it is notable to say the village has led on some efforts.
Thank you. Good evening, President Skaman, trustees, Clerk Waters, Village Manager Kevin Jackson, and everyone joining us this evening. To address the crisis resulting from ICE's activities, Village Manager Kevin Jackson charged department heads with mobilizing a coordinated cross-departmental response to support Oak Park residents, businesses, people who work in Oak Park, and visitors, and to operationalize the Welcome Village Ordinance and the designation through concrete action. Staff started by designating the parking lot at Village Hall to only be used for people working for and conducting business with the village. As we've all seen, that has greatly deterred ICE from appearing around Village Hall. Staff also enhanced the Immigration Resources page of the Village of Oak Park website. We added over 50 additional links and separated them by category for greater ease of access by the public. There are now approximately 75 entities listed. We also added links to the organization's pages related specifically to immigration, as well as links to the organization's home pages, so people had an opportunity to see who the organizations were. Staff also prepared responses to frequently asked questions, and we referred back to the Attorney General's office because he is the highest lawyer in the state. Staff worked together to enhance the website further by adding a call out to the landing page with a link to the immigration resources in Oak Park, Chicagoland, and the state. We've issued multiple news releases that reinforce the village's position as a welcoming village. Those statements describe the roles of law enforcement and staff and how we do not assist in matters related to immigration. These news releases also direct people to our Immigration Resources page for information. Similarly, there's an item on the front page of the next issue, the November-December issue, of the OPFYI. It includes a link to the resources. We expect it to be delivered to Oak Park residents the week of November 10th. Staff have linked the Immigration Resources page in multiple locations on the front page of the Village of Oak Park website. You might notice that there's a particular call out to it at the bottom of the page that has a little megaphone. Additionally, as of yesterday, Communications was able to add a slider, which I call a slideshow, at the top of our website, with one of the slides linking back to the Immigration Resources. We've printed over 10,000 bilingual 5x7 flyers for distribution in the community, and we've provided all of the trustees and clerk waters with only 50 so far, but you'll get more thus far. The flyers contain our introductory text about the issue and a QR code that links back to our resources page. The flyers are going to be distributed through a variety of groups, including but not limited to first responders, inspectors, ECHOs, our community partners like the library and Collaboration for Early Childhood Education, as well as the other VOP taxing bodies, chambers of commerce, medical providers of people and pets, faith-based institution, and educational and enrichment providers, as well as others. We anticipate the flyers will reach village residents, people who work in Oak Park, visitors, and business owners. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, so then to kind of go as quickly through the, what if we kind of share as briefly as we can our support versus where we might have concerns and want to hear more information in preparation for an actual agenda item. And can we just kind of start with Chibi and go this way? Would that be okay? Since you guys have already presented?
Yeah, strongly supportive. Would love to, see how do we continue to show that as a community we're united against those operations from federal law enforcement. Being able to witness some of this firsthand, being there at the ICE facility, seeing some of the actions taken, I definitely agree that this is not what anybody in Oak Park would stand for. I don't think anyone would, seeing what's happening to our neighbors, but also seeing what's happening there and how they're using that facility and utilizing Illinois State police officers to carry out these types of acts. I am glad our police officers are not included in that, and I strongly support our officers and love that they support what this village stands for, and I think you all have done a great job in making sure that you get that information out there. I've heard from other, not only residents, but organizations within Oak Park that are really thrilled at the level that you all have shown for, not standing for this. So I think you all have done a fantastic job of rising to that occasion, and I couldn't ask for more. I just wish that more organizations were taking the same steps that you all are. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Corey?
I'm strongly supportive and looking forward to whatever comes back on the agenda.
I support the ordinance. I would like to see additional communication or coordination with our fellow governing bodies, because as noted, there's limited property that the village controls. The majority of the properties where such an ordinance would necessarily have to be implemented to be effective would be, at schools, at parks, at the library. And so I think that I would like to see us collaborating on, providing language, providing, whatever support necessary for our partners to implement similar, enact similar. I don't think they're called ordinances when it's the policies. I don't know, but for them to take similar actions. I also, I appreciate the cards we've gotten. I would like to see us coordinating something around signs that businesses could use, and that we could communicate to those businesses who are licensed in Oak Park. Hey, these are your rights. You have the right to inform ICE and federal agents that they are not welcome to come for any civil immigration purposes without a judicially signed warrant. And so providing signage and education to business owners throughout the community, I think, is very important. And I don't know whether we are necessarily the best messenger on some of these best practices for residents who may have folks who ICE would interact with in a aggressive and negative way, working in or around their property. But I do think it is important for us to figure out how to partner with or identify who those organizations would be who can provide that messaging to residents about how to create a safety plan for people who are working on their property. Because right now, what is happening in our streets is federal agents are driving around looking for people who have brown skin and asking them for their papers. And if they cannot produce papers, they are implementing what's called a Kavanaugh stop, where they apprehend them, they abduct them for a period of hours while they attempt to confirm what their immigration status is. And in some cases, they're released with a citation for failing to have their papers on them, because we now live in a country where you have to prove your legal residency if you are not a citizen, or if they can't identify legal residency for the individuals, they remain detained for days on end in a situation where long-term detention was never the design of the facility. The conditions are unspeakable, and they are consistently being asked to sign papers, which oftentimes they do not understand, without legal representation, to be voluntarily deported. And this is the reality of the situation. So it is incumbent on you as as a resident here, if you are going to have people working on your property who might be targeted by ICE, not because they've done anything wrong, not because they have any criminal record, but simply because of the complexion of their skin, to come up with a safety plan by which you welcome those people into your home if federal agents stop in front of your property, and by which you tell those federal agents that they are not welcome into your home unless they present a judicially signed warrant. And so I do not know that the village as a body is the right body to be communicating that message, but I think that we should be figuring out who is, and we should be, each of us individually, and each of the residents who are listening should be thinking about what they are going to do to protect the people who they are considering putting at risk, because these ICE agents have forced roofers to jump off of roofs in Naperville. They've apprehended people who were just on the side of the street selling tamales and have been doing so for years and years. This is not any kind of targeted thing. This is this is a meeting quotas kind of thing. So, sorry, that went a little bit longer than just the support. I'm really passionate about this, but I do think we need to do the Know Your Rights directed to businesses, and we need to figure out how to communicate to residents what they should be doing, even if it's not us as the messenger of how to implement a safety plan if you have folks working on your property.
Sorry. Thank you. So regarding this matter, I think that I would, of course, it's clear to me what the will of the board is, and I will follow the will of the board as we move ahead. I think it's some good things were discussed here, good ideas, and I would rely on our legal counsel to make sure everything is properly vetted, and I'm sure it will be. But I would also like to have clarity about the difference between, for the board and for the public, approaching this from an ordinance standpoint versus a resolution. And I will just mention that. I think that needs to be continually understood what the difference is, because those words are used interchangeably and they're very different. So coordination among taxing bodies is extremely difficult. Maybe COG could have something to do to help with that, I'm not sure. But trying to get boards with have different schedules and different meetings, as we heard, we can't even meet till whenever it is. Our schedule is very up and down right now due to the budget. And we've got all these 6 taxing bodies trying to get something together. It's going to require some extraordinary effort and some special meetings. I also wanted to say that I think personally we need to focus on taking material measures for keeping residents safe, as opposed to creating a decree of sorts that may have little to no effect. And I do want to make sure that I value and I understand residents feel powerless, and the village is like an ant and the federal government is like an elephant. So it's not a fair comparison or a fight, if you want to use that word. I will say, for what it's worth, that I am concerned to some degree about retaliation. I think we have to be mindful that the government is not just going to allow things to always happen, that they take action. I don't want to see National Guard marching down Lake Street. I don't think that would be devastating, and it would make matters far worse. So I think we have to be mindful of those things and balance them, and I'm confident that the board here and our staff and our legal counsel will work to try to have those ends meet in a positive way. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like we have pretty overwhelming support for the work that Jenna and Derek have brought forward with the example of Evanston and the city of Chicago's ordinance. It is duly, to be appreciated and noted that village staff and the board was largely supportive of similar actions that were, the parking lot was the example. And so I think what this is doing is this is saying we'd like to see that type of signage and enforcement, and enforcement I think is still of question, but it's at least finding some ways to notify our village manager of anyone who would be on a lot that is being misused, right? And dealing with things then with the goal of keeping our residents safe. And then the other aspects is just to say them out loud that we're seeing in the examples also were reinforced by the statements from my colleagues here around making sure that you're providing signage for small businesses, potentially for residents, that they can either print off of our website or print or pick up here and use, that are all geared towards what they can do. If it's just this property is ice-free, or if it's, what was the other language that was used? We protect all workers, and then providing as much information so that people can, also reiterating what I've heard from colleagues, create their own plan, right? Whether it's being a community grassroots messaging of what your plan, you might have as a plan, or if it's like the cards that our village staff have provided for us about knowing your rights. But really, I think a goal for myself is that it's proactive as much as can be, is that everybody in our community has thought about what their plan should be. And some of that can't be dictated by government. You're going to have to decide. If you've got workers working on your house, maybe you can allow them access to your garage so that when they come and go from their vehicle, they're already on your property. That's your personal choice. You're going to have to figure that out. The village can't tell you to do that, but if it's community, keeping communities safe, then we want everyone to at least understand what know your rights means, right? And go ahead.
So I just want to mention that I think more than know your rights in the sense of like individual rights, I would emphasize that acronym that we've been seeing, the SALUTE. So what to do when you see activity, note the size of the operation, what are they wearing, try to get the information of the loved one or a contact person of a person being detained so that you can notify them, is probably the more effective, right? As Derek said in our memo, right? Everybody in Oak Park, ideally, whether you live here, work here, or you're visiting here, would know what to do in the situation.
Yeah, and it's excellent to restate as much as possible, because we can read that, but until we're in the moment and we need to use it, we need to sometimes practice it, right? And really give it thought. And so that, to me, in having a village-wide campaign helps to to whatever extent we have the power to do. I do also think that, the coordination with other governmental bodies is necessary, and we'll leverage the relationships that we've got, respecting that each governmental body has their own different concerns and purview. But I think we've seen again and again and again, whether it was during COVID, whether it was during our migrant response, or now, that we have a very caring community that is capable of mobilizing and being leaders in very challenging times. And we're here. You know, Brian said it, and I'm not gonna say much more, but I mean, really, when you see somebody yanked out of a car in a street in Oak Park, we are in an authoritarian society right now. It's here. And, you know, history's gonna be on our side for acting and responding and taking care of each other. And when we look back at history where we have seen this before, very, very tragically, you know, it is, the history will tell you that it is community that protects each other. So that is, and so then we should be expecting is that we're gonna hear from staff some budget asks. And, you know, so FYI. And so do we need we don't need an actual vote on this. I think the direction's pretty clear.
Yes.
Now, there might be things that we still have to flesh out when it comes back to us because, you know, you have work in responding for us to then be able to continue to process.
Yes, there's one thing that I'll mention since it's kind of front of mind here is, as it relates to cost, if there's an expectation to consider making signs so that they are available free to businesses. Because I think that came across in the materials that way.
Yes.
So there would be a cost to doing that.
Right.
Are we,
Right, but also have it so that if to whatever extent available, that printable from the website, because some people are just gonna choose to print from a website. Like even, we approved the Halloween hours this evening. Back in COVID, we used to have, you know, you're participating or not, that people, yes or no, that people could print based on is their comfort, right? But, so it, and we still have free bags and free, you know, the green bags and the leaf bags available that you can pick up at Public Works or here at Village Hall. And so kind of in that same regard, you know, I mean, I don't know that we're looking for a budget that has 39,000 signs for every registered voter in the Village of Oak Park, but
I know the Chamber of Commerce has at least met once to discuss their organizing around the efforts, and they have their own budget, so it might be interesting to coordinate, at least with the brick and mortars.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll also just add, I think the important thing that I think that the village can play the role of the coordination. I think it's important to have shared, consistent, actionable signage that is throughout the village. Doesn't matter. Nobody knows what the township versus the village versus the library versus the school district. Like, nobody makes that distinction except probably us. So the same message across would be, I think, the goal. And also, just as a comment, I appreciate all the resources that are added to the village website. I'll just make a comment that more is not always better. Like, sometimes just you can be overwhelmed. I'm like, well, which one of these 20 links is the one for me? Sometimes it's just best to pick a few winners and just say, just go to the ICER hotline, like the family support hotline. Call that number. That's the number. And follow the salute, directions that Jenna mentioned. Sometimes just making it as simple as possible. I think that's what we should be going for here, because we're not trying to get the end-all be-all of all the information you could possibly ever need about the situation. It's, I'm in a moment where something just happened. What do I do? Here's the thing you do, and that's it. So just to keep it broad, but like concise. That would be my comment to this conversation.
I mean, I know that some of the emails we've received to me are just that people want to be able to do something to help. And there isn't necessarily, so just everyone educating themselves on that potential moment that you now at some point are probably inevitably going to witness. Is that something that you can do that helps you feel like you have some control in this challenging time that we're living in? And honestly, just to reiterate that resistance is necessary. All right. There's appropriate time to close? Okay.
Thank you so much.
And so we do have call to board and clerk. Clerk Waters, would you like to start us off?
Pass.
Thank you, Chibi.
Pass.
Pass.
I'm just going to quickly mention the ICER Family Support Network hotline. The number is 855-435-7693. Again, that's 855-435-7693. If you see ICE in the community, obviously assess your own risk level and your own risk tolerance, but I would urge you to take video. You are legally within your right to video ICE as they do what they are doing. Narrate what you are seeing on the video. Describe on the video how many agents you're seeing, what they're wearing, what vehicles are present, including, if you can make them out, the license plates, both state and license plate number. Identify what the agents are doing as you are narrating. If you are able to, ask the name of the person being detained, ask the person being detained to say their name so that you can identify who that individual is, and that will help ICER to identify and potentially be able to provide support to that individual and their family, or in the case of someone who is part of a rapid response team who has been detained, be able to identify them and provide appropriate legal support. I already spoke briefly about making a safety plan around your own home, but I think President Skaman stated it well. That this is something where it's not if you're going to see this in your neighborhood on your street, it's when, and that when is coming soon. So now is the time to make a plan so that when it happens, you know what to do, whether it is recording or whether it is because you have a cleaning person in your home and you need to make a plan as to what you say if someone shows up at the door, or it's roofers, or it's someone bagging your leaves. Make a plan before you need it. You don't want to be having to figure out what to do in the moment. That is what makes you feel helpless and hopeless. If you have a plan in advance, you'll be prepared to take appropriate action when necessary.
Pass.
The only thing I'll add to Brian's important message is the location of the incident. If you can find like cross streets or an address, the uniform, if you can make out any descriptor of the agents, and then when you record, horizontal footage is preferred. It gets more in the range, in the shot.
I'll close with saying I realize this is probably a conversation that's alarming probably to some folks, and I think it's important to recognize that not everybody is sort of approaching this situation in the same way. some of us are already in it and seeing the crisis as it is unfolding in front of us. And sometimes it's just hard to accept that. And it's, it's the easy path is to just ignore it and to move on and continue on with your day. I was at the No Kings protest on Saturday, and I think that shows that more folks are becoming aware of what is happening and that there is strength in 7 million people saying that they don't want to see what they're seeing at the federal level. And we stop it by banding together as a community. And so it is an opportunity for you to go out and maybe meet those neighbors that you haven't been talking to much, make some connections with those folks that you see at the school, drop off or pick up, and make those connections, because that is the strength that we are going to need to get through this time. And bonus, you'll make some new friends along the way. You will feel more part of your community if you make that effort. So I'll leave with that. And the last thing is that number one more time is 855-435-7693. And that's me.
Yeah, and to steal one idea from some community organizers who have been leaders in this is to create a bracelet with that number, because it is not, the 1-800 number that we might have remembered from early commercials. What is it? And so I just want to thank I was also at the protest on the No Kings marches on Saturday, and it was amazing to see the number of people. This time I wasn't even able. I did see Derek up on a rock, standing, taking a picture of everybody, but there were so many people that I didn't get to actually walk. I had to just cross the street and line the street, because the trickle to walk along Lake Street towards Harlem was just couldn't get there ever. Eventually it did, but so thank you to all of Oak Park and our neighboring communities who participated, and thank you to everyone who continues to go to Broadview and other protests in the city to vocalize and use your freedom of speech. And peacefully protest. That is how we win. Peacefully protest. Don't take the bait. Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.